Hello, people. How are we doing tonight? You don't have a meeting as in you can join? I didn't give much notice on this. This morning I was like, you know what? It's gonna talk about it. Love getting the alert when I'm free. Oh yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you don't. It's the most inopportune time, I believe is what you said, yeah? This should be fun. It should be an interesting conversation. I'm really curious to see what happens. Hey, Jules. How are we doing tonight? I tagged some people. I don't know if they'll show up, but we can certainly just talk about it. Did anybody watch the documentary? What's the topic? A documentary came out from the Daily Wire. What is a Woman? Sparked a lot of conversation. I want to talk about it. Happy Friday. It's been a week, y'all. Did anyone else see it? It's only been out for a day. It was I have a lot of thoughts about it. That would cause convo and fighting. You know, it's a necklace is from what again? Star Wars. Well, okay, so if you've seen it, what were your thoughts? Try to give me your thoughts in like all 6 words that you can have in the comments. My thoughts are there were a lot of good points. There was also some cherry picking, as expected for the audience it was written for. Hey, 2 in the morning. I can't believe you're staying up till 2 in the morning to watch this. I would just throw it on YouTube tomorrow. Hey, super awesome. Friend just stopping by because I were like, well, thank you, Midwest girl. Super awesome. Do you want to join me? Did you watch the documentary? Do you want to join me? Do you want to talk about it? Cherry picking. He picked some very specifically reactive things. And I guarantee there's a lot in those interviews that was left out. You're intrigued to finish it? I haven't seen it. I just know the topic are controversial right now. Yeah, it's going to be controversial for a while. Watching it this weekend? Yeah, I want to see their other documentaries. The documentary is What is a Woman from the Daily Wire. Watched it and it was good. I think, I think it was fine. It was, there's a side of the conversation that gets lost in all of this. And that's the only part that I just really wish could have made it a little more fair. You're banned from going live. Oh, go to your other account? Okay. Did I like it? Okay, well, nothing that he put in there isn't something I've already thought of or concluded on my own. So in that sense, it's not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. None of that was the case for me. I think the way that he structured the big question and asking people really highlighted some things that I do think is important. A little too reactionary? What do you mean a little too reactionary? For anyone who wants to join, do I have to turn it on? For anyone who wants to join, feel free to ask. I want to converse with people about it because the conversation affects a lot of different sides of the conversation differently. And all I want to do is just seek to understand where people landed with it, where people are landing with the conversation. His political bias was obvious. I mean, it is. At the same time, his audience, it was written for a specific audience. He didn't write that for left-leaning folk, right? 100% didn't. And that's fair, as there's just as much bias on it. Every documentary is biased. I honestly haven't seen a non-biased documentary. I would join if I saw it, but I want to see it before I talk about it. I only read reviews of it. That's fair. Yes, Logic and Liberty. It's about the documentary. Did you watch it? Do you want to join me and talk about it? As much as I love the comments, I do want to talk to people about it. Super Awesome's going to come rejoin. Yeah, there we go.
Hi.
Hey, hey.
How are you?
I am wonderful. How about yourself?
Good. I just wanted to say I appreciate your content so much. You're awesome. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. Appreciate
So,
it. So did you watch it?
I did. I did. And I try to remove myself from bias as much as I can. I mean, we're human, so we see things through a certain lens.
Right.
Um, I thought it raised some good questions. It did bring me to consider things that I maybe didn't consider before or start to like delve into on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess where I come from is I'm always super sensitive to how I speak on this topic too, because I don't want to offend anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I obviously have my viewpoint, but I don't know all the viewpoints, so I always like to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's interesting about the conversation is how do we embrace the trans community, but also preserve naturally born women and
Mm-hmm.
what that identity is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And, honestly, a few months back, I was in a different mindset than I am now. There was one question, this question came up months ago, and I really hate when I can't answer a question. But someone asked me, what makes a woman brain? I was like, I don't know. And then I asked an army of feminists, and none of them could give me an answer. And then that started going into gender stereotypes and all kinds of things. And that helped me look at it differently.
Interesting. What's your perspective?
There's cultural brains. I don't think there's such thing as a gendered brain. Um, I
Okay.
think if you embrace feminine, what you would consider feminine stereotypes, that's not the same thing, right? Women and trans women have two very drastically different experiences, um, particularly
I totally
from
agree with that statement.
right. And I've led a lot of support groups with trans people, and most will acknowledge that truth. Where they get loud is where they feel like if how they want to be validated isn't done their way, then it's not affirming what they believe to be true to themselves, right? And that's where the charge is. Now, I will also take the stance that being what they are about it isn't going to win anybody over either, right? Like, hey, I'm one of you, but I'm going to shout at you and
Right.
tell you that you are wrong until you tell me that I am right. Like that's not how things work, right?
I want you to validate my feelings, but your feelings are totally invalid. Like it
100%.
doesn't, it can't work that way. It's never
And
going
if
to progress.
and like if gender is a construct, so is transgender. Like it goes both ways, and a lot of the community struggles with that. There's hold on, let me grab a Super Awesome. She wants to jump in too. Um, it's interesting. The way they approached it was interesting. What were some of the things that made you like look at the conversation differently?
I think one thing that really took me aback and something that I would let scientific being focused about it is the potential medical side effects of hormone therapy for young children. And I'm talking like prepubescent. And I'm a little worried that the train is barreling far towards validating feelings and making children's feelings sure children's feelings are taken care of, but they also need to live in that body for the rest of their lives. So I feel like that might be a little bit lost where we're at right now, but that's just my perspective as a mom of two young girls. Um, so that had me a little concerned with just the way some of those pediatricians, etc., were speaking. Had me a little concerned, and then also that Canadian father being charged was absolutely insane to me. As a parent, from a parent's rights standpoint, that was concerning, I would say.
The Canadian father one, that was interesting. So I've done, I do a presentation on like LGBTQ civil rights history. And what's interesting is Canada is always 10 years ahead of us. Whatever Canada does, we end up doing a decade later. And I think it's important to keep that in context with what that person said and how he was treated. Like that is a scary thought. You know, one of the things that I really struggle with, you know, making laws around words is all kinds of things can happen. So for my job, I was 3 years as my previous identity, and I've been 3 years in my new identity. People who knew me before, when they get mad, they slip, right? They just slip. They call me my old name, all kinds of things. And if there was a law around that, that would suck. There's a whole bunch of factors that come into being reactive.
Well, we're
I mean, I don't even know my kids,
right?
Like, most of the time.
I mean, I mix my kids up all the time.
Right.
Right.
Hey, let me go. I don't know what I did. Let me go back out so I can put my camera on. I don't like those pictures. I like showing my face so people don't think I'm being a coward or something. So
Okay.
Let me go back out because I don't know how to do it. I don't.
You hit the multi-guest thing, and I think you can turn your camera on from there.
Oh, can I? Oh, I can. Look at that. I didn't even have to go out. Look at that. Thanks.
There you go. Oh, is this your other account that you're allowed to play on?
Yeah, because the other one is. I noticed that when I start to get banned, like when I start to get notices from TikTok, they'll start picking up. I don't know if anybody else has had this, but they'll start picking up older videos that are literally not even triggering.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they'll just start getting reported. Like one of my adoption videos where I talk about my adoption got reported for hate speech. Like stupid old videos start getting reported when I'm close to getting banned. And I'm like, how are these videos getting reported? It can't be. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'll report pedophile videos and they'll stay up for days, but yet I feel like somebody reports my account one time and I don't get it. I don't get the algorithm.
I feel like this is one of those raise your hands if you're on your backup account because you keep getting banned. Super awesome. Yeah, that's it. I see you. I don't want to flex, but I haven't been reported yet. So
I just don't get it. I don't. Super awesome. I follow you, and I don't get it. I don't understand the most random things, and then the stupidest comments. I said something about keep that energy for something, and it got reported. I noticed that when I get my account warning, because I've had it on another account too, then stupid stuff starts popping up as getting reported, and I'm like, wait, what? That's not even at all. I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, like on
if you promote a video, you can kind of stay off their radar a little more.
Really?
Like if you just spend $5 to promote a video.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what I do when I see a promote video?
Right.
I'm just being honest.
They won't allow me to promote most of mine, so to be fair, yeah.
That's so crazy.
I don't know if it would let me, but I mean that was my only like, oh, what's this? I'm like, oh no, I don't like that.
Right. I just wish I kind of understood like if there was like some rhyme or reason. Like because there's no way there's a bunch of people just randomly reporting an adoption video I made a month ago. Like so it means it's one person that's doing it. Unless there's literally like this nefarious group of like trolls that just gets together. Like I can't think of any other reason.
That doesn't happen.
I can tell you I hang around enough on Woke Talk to tell you that they organize and do that.
That's crazy. Like
because they don't really have any other life. I mean, that's the basis of everything that they do. Everything.
It's the only amount of damage they can do.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. Another dog just came out and I'm walking my dogs. I'm not saying that there's not conservatives who do that, but I just don't see it as much. Maybe I'm just naive, but
I think there's just douchebags and not douchebags.
Right.
I personally think the Daily Wire made up their cybersecurity attack. I think they made it up because they're going on about that. They're like, we were attacked, and here's the no. I don't think so because I don't know anyone who was blocked.
Do you think they just had bad internet then? Because it was down.
Was it? Okay, you're the first one to say something.
Yes, I got on, but when I got on, there was people that were on my live saying I couldn't get on mine. I'm so glad you're playing it.
Okay.
So there was, but then again, I mean, I guess it could have just been slow internet, but I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm a cybersecurity expert, and I'm kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, you would know more than I would. No, but I will say there were people saying that they couldn't get on theirs. I mean, for what it's worth. I mean, I did get on mine though, so I didn't have that problem. But
Right.
you know, I got on at like 8:00 though. I watched the backstage first and everything. So maybe because I was on early, maybe I don't know.
Maybe. So someone wanted context on the Canadian father. So for those who didn't see it yet, there was a father who had I don't remember which direction they went, but they had a child. And in Canada, you can get gender-affirming hormones without parent consent. And so basically the mother approved this, even though it wasn't required. And then the father stepped in and was like, heck to the no. And he was thrown in jail, right? And then he had to pay like $15,000 or $30,000 bail, because it was considered harassment.
Right.
Bro.
That
I have not heard about that. I mean, I don't know how people don't lose their mind. I would just lose my mind.
Well, and I mean, I think that's where it goes back to just the parents. Like, we have to be really careful, whether it's freedom of speech or not. And my whole thing started as like the whole, Florida bill. Being a teacher, it affects me, and so I tried to really just do sensible things that you can do. Like, we cannot start taking parents' rights away. Like, this is crazy. Like, I mean, granted, it's not happening here yet, but like you said, Becca, 10 years. I mean, you just can't. Where do you draw the line of when a child can? I don't know. It just, ugh. I just literally don't know what to say with it.
Well, and on the other side of that fence, I think about my upbringing. I was called horrible things by my mother to my face, right? Is that something that should have had protections in place?
Right. Right.
Right. Again, where's that line?
Right. But
I'm gonna just be like, that can be a possibility for every human being.
It can.
Again, it goes back to you're either a good person or you're a shitty person.
Right. People have mental abuse in their family, whether might not even have anything to do with their sexual identity. Their parents just might be mentally abusive. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's, where now, should that happen? No, not at all. But, should there be protections against it? Like, super awesome. Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I mean, like, you're a parent, you obviously know that you're not going to parent perfectly.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And you know that your mindset is different at 38 versus 23.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when you're parenting at 23 might look different than when you parent at 38 after you've learned a few things. Like my mom, she has 3 girls. I'm the oldest. And then I have the middle sister, and then I have my littlest sister. Me, I had the worst. I had the worst brunt of everything. My middle sister, she kind of did, and then my little sister never saw anything ever happen. Just really led a really awesome childhood. But my mom learned from the things that she had done wrong, so it's just like, was it intentional or was it a learning lesson? And where do you draw the line of, like, looking, oh, you're a bad parent? Well, no, I was uneducated. I had no experience.
Right.
You didn't have directions pinned on your ass when you came out of me. So,
which I still think should be a thing. I still think that should be a thing. I think we need to be pinning directions on babies' asses when we send them home.
But that's the thing. Like, who are you to tell how to raise somebody? You know what I mean? Like, that comes down to freedom. Like, hey, this is my little human being that I paid for, and came from me. You know what I mean? Like, in 18, you want to do whatever you want to do. I think that's beautiful. But until then, you're mine.
Right, and like, I mean, obviously with exceptions.
Well, and I don't want the government involved, to be honest.
No, not at all. Why is it? Like, like that's weird.
That
they're so good at everything they do.
I mean, like, who wouldn't trust them? I mean, look at it. I mean, did you hear Biden come out and say, like, everyone is actually doing very well and they're financially stable?
I mean, he would wink if the muscles worked.
Hey, I thought somebody. I want to know your take on this, if you want to, because I know sometimes you don't like to give all your opinions, and I respect that. But I saw somebody say something that, you know, it's becoming trendy, and I know that Matt Walsh touched on that, and that transgender. Maybe I'm just stupid. If it is a woman going to a man, it is a trans man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the trans man in the What is a Woman, you know, was talking about how at 42 he got lured in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what do you feel about the whole trendiness of it? I mean, we can't ignore the aspect that there has to be some sort of, the numbers just aren't lying. Yes, I will give you that it's more accepted now, and so I would expect an increase, of course. But this increase is exponential. I mean, we're talking about an increase such that is, I mean, what do you think about that whole thing about it being kind of trendy right now?
So, I mean, this is a really layered conversation.
Right. Well, someone commented it too, and I figured it touches on the movie as well. So
it does. And you know, one thing I'll say is that trans men and trans women have this conversation very differently. And one day I asked why that was.
Oh, okay.
And that led into a whole conversation around, well, typically women who are brought up to be quiet and like not, you know, be as dominant and in place as a man. Because, you know, mind you, the reason a lot of people transition, I've helped a lot of people in support groups, and there's some different lenses to look at it through. When you don't want to be what you are due to self-rejection, there's a lot of layers in place with that, right? And so, or if you want maybe a privilege that the other gender has because of a series of things that you had to deal with as a kid, that's a motivation, right? So, you know, a lot of trans men may go that direction because they just want the privilege of a man, because like women weren't a priority in their life. You know, they had no good positive role models, things like that. And trans women, I mean, that's a different conversation because there's a different drive there, and they were most likely raised with a different attitude, which is why I think the conversation keeps going back to trans women. Like, no one wants to talk about trans men, and
right, I noticed that too. I was thinking that when I was watching the movie, I was like, why don't we ask? I was like, I wonder what these people would say if you asked them what a man was, like you said in your video.
Exactly, and I've asked men that. I've asked so many men what a man is, what makes a man. And that is a dramatically different answer than most of the women who can't answer the question, what's a woman? Men know even less about how to define it than women do. Right. That's what was really interesting about the video. And now I know they cherry picked a lot of people, but you know, right. I can tell you that I've asked many, many, many women, what makes a woman brain? And not many people can give an answer. Can any of you give that answer?
Right. I mean, not the brain, but like, I guess for me, it's just like, why did, I don't know. It's just the shift of, I mean, I don't know that there's a brain, but then again, I do, but I don't know the answer because I'm not, you know, maybe I'm just not educated enough in it, you know, but I do feel like here's my thing, I guess, Becca, this would be my question. If there isn't a woman or a man brain, then what makes somebody think that they're in the wrong body? If it's not a feeling that would be going on in your brain, does that question make sense? Like,
it does.
It's not something, then where does it come from then? If there isn't a man and woman brain, where does that thought then to say, oh, I'm not like, if I were to be like, I don't feel like a woman, that's got to come from my brain, right?
You know, and that's what a lot of people will say is they go like, you know, I don't feel like a man, I feel like a woman. And again, you go, well, what the hell does that mean? And they'll describe stereotypes. They'll describe stereotypes.
Right.
And I've had a lot of LGB folk, OG LGB folk, who go, y'all are going backwards in like the removing stereotypes thing. Right? Like a lot of 90s and 80s gays, they very specifically were like, no, we don't want to say this is what makes this and this is what makes this. And a lot of work was done that way. But now trans people are going, no, this is what defines this. And that's where a lot of charge is between older LGB folk and trans people. And I had to sit in that for a while when someone brought that up to me, because I was just like sitting there like,
is Savvy in this? Is Savvy in our live?
Savvy is in the live.
I just saw her.
Queen herself? Oh my goodness.
I know, she actually came.
Phenomenal. Can I ask another question? Just because, again, I don't really personally know someone who's trans.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, and I don't know if this is just the noise, it's hard to know what's authentic and what's not these days. Is it more, it just seems like a lot more attention and vocalization is happening from trans women than trans men.
Right.
And I'm curious why
I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, didn't you, with the...
I hinted at it. I think there's a couple factors, and I think this is some hard truths that a lot of trans people hate me because this is where I landed, and I landed in this space because of what I did in my own journey. The reality is that misogyny is part of the male culture. It is. The traditional everyday man gets raised with a certain mindset, and it's most. And we're in this conversation right now where we're addressing that, but it's gonna take some time, right? I can tell you that in all of the support groups, the trans women all demonstrated the same behavior versus trans men. Am I gonna say, they are the loudest because they are misogynists and it's the patriarchy? I don't know if I would go that far because everyone's intent can be different. But I can say that when I transitioned, prior to transition, I had worked with my people for 3 years. I could literally walk in a room and I could use my body language to get what I want. Okay, they would ask me, what do you think about this? And I would go, that's what we're doing. And there was no dialogue. There was no conversation. Everyone just agreed. After transition, that stopped happening. And I had to start proving like evolution is real before I would get taken seriously. And that's where I started asking questions like, well, what changed? And at first I landed in the boat of, clearly everyone's just transphobic. But that really wasn't the case. People were just kind of uncomfortable and adjusting. But then I had to figure out why I was so angry about it. Like I was just so flippin' charged. And it was because I lost what was an easy conversation and it became a hard conversation. And then I talked to women who are in IT and they all said, yeah, that's just how it is working in this industry. Like, welcome. And I think a lot of trans women don't have that part of the conversation. They're angry, but they haven't quite tied the why to it yet. And if they do tie the why to it, and it's a very blaming mentality as opposed to I have identified what has been a problem for an entire group of people, but instead of talking about it in an empathetic way, I'm going to say, this affects me more than them.
And I think that's, as a woman, like, and with daughters, like, that's probably where I have, and I can't really put my finger on it entirely, but I have just like this doesn't feel right feeling. Like it feels like sorry, I cut out. Am I back now?
You're back, yeah.
But it feels like women are being kind of ran over in this. And I don't want it to have like a victim mentality or anything like that. I don't like to rush to that, but I do feel like it's like, well, wait a minute, like women's rights were such a thing for so long. And now it kind of feels like, and again, I with trans people, I'm like, live your life. I do feel like though there can be a little bit of a rub when it's like to be a woman or a girl growing up, there's certain things that we face that a trans woman who transitions later in life will never understand.
Yep.
And so it's just, I guess having that understanding and just acknowledging that there is a difference, even when it comes to sports and biologically.
Say what?
Where I get kind of charged.
A lot of people do understand, but there's
it's a lot of people use the words that they understand it, but I don't think they appreciate it. Something that I have to constantly tell people is like, hey, listen, you've been a marginalized person for like a year. Like for trans women specifically, right? Like, hey, I know that you're upset and this is like new and fresh and whatnot, but like the reality is that you're comparing to someone who had to deal with it through being sexualized in puberty and all of these things. Like men aren't, I was, but no, most men aren't sexualized in puberty the way women are. And that adds a whole lot of layers of trust issues, body issues, so many things. And trans women can only speak to that from a fresh lens with a very different law. They lose something.
Right.
And they don't know that I think they don't know how to tie those emotions together.
Right. Now, are you kind of saying, and I'll say the words because I know this is not what you said, but put it for my like vocabulary because You speak so great. I know I'm pretty smart too, but you say all the words. No, but are you basically saying that, like, for what it's worth, I don't love the word toxic masculinity, but are you kind of saying that it kind of transitions over with them? Is that kind of what you're touching on a little bit? Like they kind of, their toxic masculinity kind of runs into them being trans, and so they still feel like, or to them being a woman, sorry. Again, I don't mean any, if I say something wrong, it's just naivety. It's not to be rude. You know, crossing over to be a woman, do they kind of carry that with them? Is that kind of what you mean by they, you know, when you came into a room, you could own it? And, you know, is that kind of what you're saying? I mean, and for lack of, you know,
that it's an aspect of it. You know, I struggle with the toxic masculinity conversation for so many ways.
That anyway, but I guess I just mean like the whole persona of being a man.
Yep.
Kind of carries over is what you're saying. Okay.
That makes sense. I think they try to keep their how they could be a man, and then but they want to present a very different way, and that presentation is still uncomfortable for so many people, and they run into that charge. And as a man, what happens when you're challenged? Like you're pretty much conditioned to kind of fight a little bit, right? Is it toxic masculinity? I don't know. Because it's also a trait that so many people desire, right? Like I want a man who can protect me, which means that when home is challenged, I want my man to protect the home, right?
I hate, like I said, I hate that wording, which is lack of better wording at the moment.
Yep.
I guess just kind of meant their whole persona, though, as being a man, kind of carries over as the look at me, I'm the dominant one or whatever. I can get that. I never thought about it like that, so that's awesome. Yeah.
Like for me personally, the way I approach,
well, and it's a lifetime.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I can talk forever.
Like
you go.
A lifetime of experience being male or female, and so I think yes, while you might transition, that doesn't undo that lifetime of growing up in a certain, I don't want to say role, but with certain experiences, because life does look completely different through those lenses. It does. There's much different challenges, many different fears, many different obstacles that are faced. Female versus male, and I think that's what's hard. So when you like name a woman of the year who was a bisexual male or trans female, trans woman, to me it feels hurtful.
Right.
It just does, because I'm like, if you grew up a man, you had a certain amount of opportunities that likely your female peer did not, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to sound bitter or angry or victim mentality, but I do think a lot of bio women can resonate with that, I guess, in a way.
I was going to bring up the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing too, like the whole being like woman of the year, only because, you know, I can see it. I mean, and I think everybody can kind of understand why that would feel like a slap in the face. I mean, I don't think we have to be bigoted or anything like that to feel like, oh, that might have maybe a little too soon. You know what I mean? Like,
to be fair, a lot of the trans community doesn't even like Caitlyn. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's because she leans right, though, doesn't she?
That's the only reason why. They're like, oh, no.
Right.
Same reason they hate me.
I think that there's a difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity.
Exactly.
There is.
Just like there's like the feminist woman versus like a normal female thinking. Right. You know, like it's extremes again. And what are we looking at? You're either an asshole or you're not.
Right.
And I think in any gender, in any race. I mean, none of us are excluded.
I hate to just have it all down. Or dick or not, or a jerk, but I do want a place for trans people. Like, I believe there has to be, like, I do want, obviously, to make room at the table. I'm a very accepting, understanding person. It's just, how do we make room at the table without pushing biological women off the table? Like, that's where there needs to be a discussion and balance.
You know, where I tried so hard to have this conversation, and I have it with as many left-leaning folk as I can, but it's okay to have a third category across the board. And so many of them really struggle with that because they want to be, they purposefully want to be one of these two, what I would consider a limiting category. Because here's what trans people can bring to the table, is because they can see things from two sides of the fence, that means that they can fix the toxic parts of where they came from. Right? So for me, I can talk to men. they can bridge the gap. So I talk to men very specifically about my experience. And I have gotten a lot of men to really open up and be vulnerable and understand this place of their impact unknowingly, because I can speak their language, because women and men communicate drastically different and they care very differently about the same topic. They 100% do. And that is something trans people can bring to the table. But so many trans people are just like, no, I want to be in this category. It's like so bad. I'm investing all this time, energy, and money and emotional stuff into this category, and they won't let me in that category. Be your own damn category. Like, I consider that an empowering thing.
Right.
100%.
I think it's very selfish. Like, honestly, it's very selfish. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or anything.
Well, we're not
get banned on this live, but I mean, it's not like they're any less than or any more than us. We all deserve to be seen equally. That's what they wanted, right? We're all about equal. Everybody equal. So you got to be equal. I mean, you can't just until it's convenient for you. No. Now I want you to do it this way. That's
right.
That's not how that works.
I think, to be honest, that's what puts a lot of people off. Super awesome. Also, what is your name? Or do you not tell people what your name is?
My name's Jana.
Okay, I was like, I don't think super awesome. I mean, I like you, but I mean, geez. But no.
I like my adjectives.
Right, my adjectives are super awesome. But I think that is what puts a lot of people off more than just the idea of it. I don't think people realize that. I don't know, Becca. How many would you say, like, conservatives have you talked to that actually just hate trans people? Like, are they? I know. Don't get me wrong.
Do you want the real answer?
I know they're out there. No, really, are they? I mean, but then again, I guess you got to look at who you're. It depends on the demographic, I guess.
What I can tell you is most of my friends, most of my close friends that I have deep relationships with are right leaning. Now, that took a few places of earning trust and healing some wounds that other people in my community have left. And I think that's the part of the conversation that's missing is, trans people have really hurt a lot of people, and there's a lot of wound healing that has to happen. Like, there's so many spaces that, like on the conservative side, that I can walk in the room and immediately I'm like categorized as all these things. Then they have a conversation and they go, oh shit. There's one who's not like that. I wonder if there's others. Right. And there really are. It's just the others are quiet. And they reach out to me all the time. They're like, I can't believe you're brave enough to do this. If I did it, then I'd be excommunicated from the LGBTQ community. And I'm kind of like, good.
Right. Like, yeah, that's not the whole community. I think not even just with trans or anything. I know a lot of people who are they're very put off by the community at all right now. I don't have any.
I've been to one Pride my whole life.
Right.
And I went to it and I said I would never go back.
I don't like going to Pride events.
One thing that's just...
So I just don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a repetitive now, and unfortunately it's become the norm, is if you don't agree, you can't be heard.
Right.
If you don't agree, I have to invalidate your viewpoint, your perspective, anything that you're saying. That is a huge regression of a massive regression of society. We will not progress. You're silencing folks who think differently than us. You can't evolve. You can't. And it's a scary place that we're going to as a society. And so I think having these conversations and being the change you want to see as far as respectful dialogue, being tolerant, being understanding, listening to understand is incredible.
Right.
But it's going to take a lot of work to get that to be the norm again, unfortunately.
Right.
Well, and everyone has to take hits from their own community as they do it. Like, y'all are going to get just as much flack as I will.
Right. And I think we need to remember too that just because, and I know that this is not popular, but it's about everything in life. So I swear to you, I'm not talking about just this topic. We aren't all going to affirm each other in everything that we do. We're not. I don't expect anybody to affirm me. I'm 10 years sober. I don't want you to tell me, oh, it's okay to drink. Go ahead. I mean, honest, I know that's not in any way the same thing. This is my experience, so that's why I used it. I don't want anyone to affirm me just because I tell you to. Like, I like purple, or like I'm a Christian. I would never tell Becca, you have to tell me that God exists because it makes me feel better. No, I would never force force you to do anything that you might not agree, like you might not understand all the way, number one, or maybe you just don't agree. Maybe it's just not your thing and you just don't agree. I don't hate you. You don't hate me. It's just not something we agree on. And I just don't understand. And then people say, well, it's human rights. I'm not trying to take away your rights. I would never vote for somebody that wants to take away anybody's human rights. But I don't have to affirm if I don't believe. I'm not saying me, myself. I'm saying just in general, kind of going off of what Logic and Liberty said. We have to be able to just be okay with people not accepting us for who we are. We just have to. As long as you're not, like Super Awesome said, as long as you're not an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see I guess I just don't see what the big deal. I don't know. I don't understand why we all have to, we've just come to this place where we're just not allowed to hurt people's feelings. We're not allowed to, you know, I don't know. It's a very bizarre place we're in right now with everything, not just this topic. It's like mind blowing to me. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have to go put babies to bed, but I appreciate you all. It was so nice to meet you guys. Thank you for the awesome conversation.
Nice meeting you.
For sure.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You.
I don't know that I knew her. Logic and Liberty. I'm gonna have to go in there. But yeah, I just the demanding. It's the demanding of affirmation. I think that puts more people off than anything. And I don't know if you might have touched on that earlier, but it's the demanding of it, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off. But you know.
Well, you touched on that you're sober for 10 years. Like, I've been sober almost 3 years. And I kind of look at, like, when I'm hanging out with people that aren't like me, like, they go, oh, I can't have a drink. I'm like, no.
Right.
My drinking problem isn't your drinking problem. I said, please do. I like, if I can't hang out with you, then I'll exclude myself.
Yep,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Because, like, maybe I'm just not feeling that situation, or I don't want to be in that situation.
Yep.
So I just exclude myself and exit. I don't have to be mean. I don't have to be nasty or anything. You know what I mean?
Right. You want to know what's really funny?
Oh!
You want to know what I think is crazy? Is that alcohol is the only drug you have to make explain why you don't use it.
Isn't that wild? And you have to, like, really justify it.
Right. Anytime I tell people I don't drink or that I'm sober, they're like, really, you don't drink at all? I'm like, yeah, not at all. Because I could never have just one drink.
Right.
I could never have just 2 drinks. I had to get blackout drunk every time I drank. And that wasn't a good time, always.
I have to argue with people often because weed and alcohol were my two. And people go, weed's not an addictive substance. No, but the behavior is. And I know that about myself.
There it
like,
is. Yep.
Like the ritual, the routine, everything with it is something that I can't control. And so therefore, you know, if you're pro green, I'm pro green. Just go be pro green over there.
Right.
And like, don't do it around me. Like, I'm asking you, right? And people get so offended.
Right.
Because they think I'm calling them a drug addict. And it's like, I mean, if that's what you heard, you know.
Then maybe that's something you need to address.
Right.
If the shoe fits, lace it up.
You know? All right, Savvy, what did you think of the documentary?
What did I think of the document? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Certainly can.
I enjoyed it because I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. Oh, that works. Matt Walsh is a bit of a troll, and I respect him for it. He just kind of cuts through the BS. He just says it very straightforward. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I want to know what a woman is, so I'm going to ask people until I get an answer. And the way he questions people, he uses something called the Socratic method, where he kind of just pushes them to, like, explain themselves.
Yep.
Instead of leading them into an answer, he puts out a question that forces them to question their own beliefs, to explain themselves. I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was very well done, very well directed, very eye-opening, a little depressing, kind of, just to see kind of the state of things. I mean, nothing I hadn't heard before, but it's something else to see it through that kind of lens. And some of it was just very, like, these people exist.
Right.
I think that was the part that I actually appreciated. You know, he did cherry pick them, but he did a good job cherry picking them. You know, some of those voices are actually very prominent voices in this conversation, and it's a place that I really struggle. You know, I'm part of a Facebook group, Parents of Trans Kids. It's like 30,000 people. And it's a private group for a reason. But I tell you that, like, it is not that uncommon to have some of the dialogue that was heard in that documentary as a flex. And it's concerning. You know, for me as a parent, you know, my kids, the first one got a vaccine injury. And that was because we did what we did as new parents who were scared, and we believed the doctors, and the doctors didn't give any warnings or disclosures. There was a vaccine injury, and we had to work through that. And the reason I use that example in this conversation, one, talking to mama bears in any capacity is incredibly difficult. But also, there's a lot of guilt with that. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to work through self-forgiveness, like in grace. And when it comes to these parents with the medical transition, my fear is that in 10 to 15 years, when this conversation changes, there's going to be a lot of adults in therapy wanting to hold their parents accountable. And I think that's going to be a very difficult place for people to operate.
Right.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
What upsets me is the way we're treating puberty. Like it's a disease, like it's this bad thing. I mean, you know, and they say, you know, so the child doesn't go through an unwanted puberty. First and foremost, no one wants to go through puberty. I missed the part where puberty was ever wanted. Okay, no one wants that, especially if you're female. It's awkward, it's scary, it's confusing. It's like, I was happy. Why am I yelling at a chair right now? Like, it's unwanted. Because your body is developing and growing. You have all these hormones that are regulating themselves so that you can become a full adult.
Right.
But it's a necessary part of life. It's literally that transition from childhood to adult. That is puberty. Allowing your body to transition from child to adult. And to stop your child from going through that transition is just incredibly dangerous and misguided. Your body has, as much as you don't want to. I understand if, you know, you are trans identified, especially if you're female, and you have to grow boobs, and it's harrowing. I get it. But your body has to go through this process in order for you to become a fully developed, well-adjusted, well, as well-adjusted as you can get in the 21st century, adult.
Right.
Like this is, it's bone development, it's muscle development, it's brain development, it's, you know, getting rid of those childhood impulses so that you can make better decisions.
Right. I think
like it's just, but now we're
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I think the thing that surprised me the most, and the one part where I literally was like, oh, was when the doctor literally said, well, we just pause puberty. And then if they decide that they don't want to do it, then we can just start it right back up again. I was like, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but like, did you just say we could just pause puberty? Like, let's just, I mean, I guess at least she was open to the idea that some people might change their mind. I mean, but when she said that, I literally like audibly gasped. I was like, oh.
So that's the part of the documentary that I wish he had done a little bit differently on. There's context behind that statement. It's not pausing puberty, right? You still grow. But where a lot of people are worried about is, okay, so my trans identified, my kid who is a trans girl, they don't want a deep voice. And at 11 years old, if we do that now, they're not going to have a deep voice. And the whole reason behind that is so when they are in a space, they don't get clocked as trans. So it's not that they pause puberty; it's that they want to stop certain things from developing in a way that is not affirming to the gender they're trying to, or the features they're trying to cater to. Now, I will say that I am a firm believer, because I've been in medical freedom community for 10 years, that the studies that they don't do is on the long-term neurological impact. And I don't care what anyone on that side of the conversation says. Every single thing that gets injected in our body has some sort of metal as a delivery system. I'm not talking about the needle. I'm talking about the junk in it. That affects neurological growth.
Right. That one doctor at the end did touch on that, though, that redhead that was in the maroon dress. Mm-hmm. I think she kind of touched on that a bit. She said there's just not enough studies. And she's like, and when I ask my fellow, doctors about it, she goes, I'm kind of ostracized. Like, she's like, I can't have those conversations because people don't want to talk about that stuff. And that's kind of scary.
My doctor, I came out to my doctor back in January. So I moved to North Georgia, right? And so I had to go find another hormone doctor. And I found one in Nashville. It's the only doctor in Tennessee that does anything. Because Tennessee is strict. But I wanted to get off of hormones, and I wanted to get off of hormones because I experienced a series of things that just weren't going away while I was on hormones. And so I said to her, I'm like, and this is my first meeting since the panini with the doctor, and I'm like, listen, I just want, have you heard about, going off of hormones? Like, what is that like? And she's like, I don't know. And she got very abrasive right away. I'm like, you don't know? Like, at all? Can you Google it in your doctor Google or something? Like, and she's like, none of my patients have ever done that because the rate in which people detransition is extremely low. I'm like, well, I didn't say detransition. I just said get off hormones. Like, when I went on hormones, I got like a list of possible side effects. So is there like a reverse list? Is it the same list, but I read it backwards? And she like took it very personally, and she got very abrasive, and actually she treated me kind of like shit. Because I kind of made her feel, I don't know, weird about her stance on the whole thing.
You thought you were trying to detransition, and so she got kind of mad at you a little bit. Is that kind of how you feel? Like,
well, there was some other dialogue too. Like I said that I don't do this, and I gave my reasons why. That pissed her off. I said that there are so many ways to go through transition that aren't medical that I don't think doctors offer. You can socially transition, and that I fully support as a kid. It's the medical stuff that I have a problem with.
Right.
And she just like immediately lost her shit on me. And just like, and it was like a physical that I haven't had in 2 years. And she was like a kind of rough that wasn't in a good way. Like it wasn't good. And I've talked to other doctors since, and they all kind of like doctors who do support hormones for kids. They get that very reactionary state. It's tough. If you can't question it in a trusting place like a doctor, no wonder you get pushed into the other direction.
Do you feel like it's because when they hear that you no longer want to take these hormones or no longer want to be involved in the medical part of it, that's money out of their pocket?
Oh, I stated that.
Making industry here because
there
now
is
by
so much money being made.
2054, we all gonna be gay. You know what I mean? Like that's the progression of it, okay? That's what they want. And it's all about the money. It's all, because here, look, I'm going to put a great example. I have gallstones. I need these gallstones removed. I have insurance. I have a PPO. It's a great insurance plan. However, I have to have $1,500 up front, even though my insurance is paying $30,000. No, they want my $1,500 first. And here's my thing. So it's not about what's best for the patient. It's what's best for them financially. They don't give a shit about me. They do not give a shit.
If I had no soul, I would join Big Pharma, get a job, and just get into the whole gender affirming industry, because there's so much money to be made off of these kids coming out of the pandemic who were isolated in their rooms, stuck on social media. They had no community with people face to face. So all they have is online community. And so many of these things that are very quiet in real life are so loud on the internet. Like no one in real life was talking about, being non-binary, these were all very private battles that people were dealing with. Because if you're gender dysphoric, it's a very private internal battle that's very hard to explain. It's like people who have depression, one of the reasons why we're so quiet about it is like, I don't know how to explain this to you.
Right.
Same, and now, but you go on the internet, people are so loud about it. And it's like, well, this person's over here is feeling this way. Maybe that will help me feel better about what I'm feeling. And now there are no more safeguards in place, because it used to be before you could even get hormones, you had to get a proper diagnosis. Yep. You had to live as a woman or a man for a year before you could even get to the surgery. And you had to qualify for said surgery. Yeah. You couldn't just get it.
So you couldn't make that money fast enough.
Right.
Make that money fast enough.
I can tell you hormones cost a couple $100 every 2 weeks.
My body messes me up for free, so.
Yeah, right. No, I genuinely think the large number of people that we're seeing is due to the panini and isolation. I genuinely think that. It was a shock for adults. and then the adults left the kids behind. And so, like, okay, what I can tell you is that my own journey was about validation trauma, not wanting to be what I was exposed to as a kid. Now take, you know, a whole generation of parents, my generation of parents, or the look at me internet generation. We're stuck on our phones arguing about liberals and conservatives while the kids are over there trying to beg for attention while their whole world is shot up. And they're going to find the only accepting and inclusive place they can, which is going to be woke ideology. And I think that's where a lot of the numbers are coming from. I really do. That's why I'm afraid in 10 years when they get the work that they need to do on themselves and find that self-validation, find that self-empowerment, they're going to have a really hard time.
Right. And like you said, it's going to come back to the parents. And that's going to be that's going to mess some people up. Like parents themselves, you know, with the guilt and stuff you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think part of the, you know, numbers exploding the way they are, one, the pandemic, kids kind of being socially pressured into thinking maybe this can help me, but also because the LGBT community has kind of imploded. It used to just be LGBT, you know, you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, and then you're transsexuals, you know, you're I'm born this way crew. And now you have all these extra alphabets and letters that aren't even real letters that have nothing to do with sexual orientation or being transsexual or now because transgender is a word that now encompasses anyone that doesn't align with their gender assigned at birth. So if you're non-binary, you can call yourself trans, whereas before, if you wanted to call yourself trans, no, we'll fix that in a minute. You had to actually transition. That's what that meant. Now You've got all these extra things for, you know, straight kids who want to belong somewhere. They can now tack on an identity and call themselves, oh yeah, I'm LGBT, I'm part of the community. Now it's so funny to me just to kind of watch it from the outside looking in. Like, I don't mean to laugh because I know it's stressful, but I mean, it's funny. I'm sorry. Now it's the LGBs have become the minority and pushed to the side because now you have all these extra people who aren't supposed to be in the community. And that's where now it's like more people are identifying as LGBT. That's because you've added the whole dang alphabet. Right.
Well, you know, there's context to that too. The LGBT community is like, if there's a queen of gatekeeping, it's the LGBT community, and that's not a new thing. It's, you know, as soon as they start going, oh, you slept with a guy once, and that you're not gay. Like that nonsense has been around forever. But things nowadays are
men than women.
You're not gay.
That's you know what I mean?
Like that's how it is. It really is. I can't tell you like how bars are even like. I mean, I don't go to the bars because I don't drink, but like it's bad. They're just like, fuck you, you don't belong, and it's like over like one little characteristic that they have. Like they don't have a slit in their eyebrow or some nonsense. They're like, no, you don't count.
Not the eyebrow.
But you know, to your point, because I'm doing a presentation now on the LGBTQ spectrum, because my company is a woke company and I have to cater to that, unfortunately. But I started like writing down, you know, biological sex versus gender identity versus gender expression versus sexual behavior versus sexual expression, which are all 5 completely different categories in the LGBTQ spectrum. And then I started going through the letters, and it's like, yeah, so we're not going to all ever align ever again. I think that's a reality that we just have to accept. Like, and I'm fine with it. Like, the LGBT community is really focused on this. Like, we are a community that's anti-conservative. And they go, it's a manipulation tactic is what it really is they find people who can easily be manipulated, and they go, hey, you can belong with us, but you got to think like us. And it's, you know, it's dangerous shit. But all these kids suffering for validation trauma, man, welcomed with open arms, and then they don't have enough lived experiences to know any better.
Right.
If they somewhat have any right-leaning relatives, like they're turned on them like that.
Right. Hey, a quick question, Becca. Did they come to you to do that, or did you volunteer to do that?
I'm in charge of the pride group in my company.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they like picked you because, you know, I was like, that could be a little bit, you could probably get them for like, wait, are you coming to me just because I'm, you know what I mean? I didn't know what.
I get picked for the conversations when a non-binary identified person throws a fit that our HR forms use the word gender instead of sex. They get me in there to be like, hey, can you talk to this person? And
But
be
at
like,
least you're a voice of reason, though. So I feel like if anybody has to be doing it, at least it's you. You know?
well, what I tell them is, listen, if you're looking for affirmation from a form, I think that you should really reconsider where you're prioritizing your time and effort. And then they get really upset with me and the conversation ends.
If you're looking for affirmation from it's true, though. I mean,
It is like over a form, because here's the deal: is 95% of trans people understand the difference between sex and gender. It's just so many of them are going, no. Gender means I'm this, but in all reality, when they go to the doctor, they have to disclose a body part that they have.
Right.
Like, that's a known thing, and I don't know why they struggle. I don't know why they're so hell-bent on keeping that not separated.
Well, and that goes back to that one guy, the trans man who was on, the movie. He said, I am always going to be a biological man.
Right.
Or a biological woman.
Right.
That I am never going to be able to change that. And
Right.
that's where I think that kind of blows my mind, too, how we can have it both ways. You can be a biological woman, but if you want to identify as a male, okay. Thanks for the glasses. Those are cool. But so for me, it's like
the funny thing is most trans people think like that though.
Right.
Like most trans people would say the same thing.
Right.
Right.
But the squeaky
That's part
wheel
of the transition is that I will always be this, but
Right.
this.
Right. Squeaky wheel gets the oil, though. You know what I mean? Like it's the people that don't do that are the loudest. You know what I mean? That demand that they are. What you know what I mean? And I think that's where we get into that discussion we were having earlier, where if somebody were to tell somebody, look, I understand what you're saying, but you're a biological woman, and then you're transphobic because you say something like that. It's like, whoa, what? Wait, what? Like, I think that's where that's where the conversation needs to be, where we need to come to we need to be honest, I guess is what I'm saying. There needs to be some honesty laid out in some of these conversations so we can start at a meeting point. You know what I mean? Like, at least meet me there. You know what I mean? Meet me there, and then we'll go from there. And I think that would have a lot of people who might not understand it. I think we might be able to get, I think people might be able to get, maybe some more understanding. Because, I think it's tough when you just automatically say, no, I'm a woman, period. I will never be, wait, no. Let's start with honesty. Let's say what we are. And I think that's a lot of what Matt Walsh was wanting to get through with that documentary. I feel like a lot of it was just him wanting to show that, when you ask for the truth, like that one gender professor, he asked him for the truth, and the guy got offended and said, what do you mean you want the truth? And he's like, well, what's your truth? And Matt's like, well, what do you mean? It's literally like we're like this, like us being here is the truth. Like, and I think that's what's hard is that it's this semantics we play with the words, and it's tough. It's tough to have a conversation.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, what are your pronouns? Which I fucking hate that. I hate that question so much. I hate it as much as y'all hate that question.
I tell people my name. Am I on a live and I get people asking me what my pronouns are? I say my name's Christina. And they get so mad. They're like, I didn't ask you your name. And I said, well, I gave it to you. I'd rather you just call me by my name. Ooh, they get so mad.
I know it, and it's all a bait, to be honest. But like when people ask me my pronouns, I give a very long answer. I go, I really don't care what they are. I'm either a trans woman or a male who presents very feminine. You call it what you want it, but and they get so like confused. Right. And I've had a lot of people yell at me. They're like, how dare you put the burden of people guessing pronouns on them? But I'm like, that's how the social contract works. Like, they're going to see what they're going to see.
That is so freeing though to hear that, because there are some trans women where it's like, I wouldn't second guess. It wouldn't even cross my mind. Like, if I'm talking about you in the third person, I would say she. But there are some people I'm like, I know you're trying your hardest, but you really just look like a man in a dress.
Right.
And I can't unsee what I just saw.
Right.
So I can't trick my brain into saying something that, like, you're just going to have to be mad at me. I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Well, and my thing is, I have a question. I've been kind of wanting to ask this for a while. And I truly mean this with all due respect. And Becca, maybe you can. I have noticed a lot too, and this is also on TikTok. And so it's not always in real life, but I've noticed it some in real life too. And when I say real life, I mean actual life, not TikTok. Sometimes I'll see a woman that looks just like me. Absolutely not trying to be a man at all. Like, clearly breasts, wearing a dress, and they'll demand you call them he, him. I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? Like, how am I supposed to know? And then how dare you if you call them she, you know what I'm saying? And I've noticed that quite a bit lately. And I do think probably a lot of it is just them trying to bait you, like you said, Becca. But that's very frustrating. It's like, you can't, at least, I feel like at least try. Like you said, Savvy. I mean, it might not be the best job, and it might not come across great. But I mean, I have seen people who literally, have wearing dresses and cleavage and all that, and they'll be like, what are my pronouns? He, him. No one's ever going to call you he, him without asking. And that, I think it's just the attention to have to ask. They want
they want the attention.
Right.
A bunch of people think I'm a masculine, like lesbian, like a masculine woman. I'm just like, wow. I mean, thanks, I guess, but no.
Is that sort of a compliment, though? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
right,
well,
right.
Thank you for affirming me unintentionally. Ever since I did the hair, super awesome.
Hey.
Right.
Stereotypes are stereotypes.
The haircut threw me for a loop. It looks great, but it's like, I get it. And then you cut your hair, it's like, well, I give up.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you, Becca. I thought you were a lesbian.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, a bunch of people do.
Like at first, like one of your first few videos, I watched it. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought you were lesbian, and then I kind of caught on. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of awesome because I've really never had a trans friend, so I feel pretty awesome that you're my first trans friend.
Right.
Aw.
Yeah.
You guys.
I think.
Oh, sorry, girls.
I think Becca's probably a lot of people's first trans friend, because I think that she is really bridging the gap on this app, and I absolutely love it. I might not agree with everything she says, and I know she doesn't agree with everything I say, but the fact is that we can have these conversations, and it is making people really mad. You know what I mean?
It does.
And the fact that Becca's not demanding something from me, and I don't think that people understand just how much more of a conversation you can have when you are just put your emotions down for a minute. You know what I mean? Set it down. Set it to the side. If I say something wrong, if I call you the wrong pronoun, it's no disrespect, unless I'm being an asshole. I mean, you know what I mean? But let's have an honest conversation. But a lot of the times, guards are up, walls are up, and you can't have the conversation. And so I think you are tearing down those walls one TikTok at a time.
And it's cool. It's cool because of the fact that you don't push it on people. I want to make you feel even better. Like,
right.
However you want me to address you, I'm gonna make sure that that's how I address you, because I like you and I care about you, and you're not pushing things on me. Like, right. I want to respect you because you're my friend. You know what I mean? Whereas other people, when they trying to force something on you, I'd be like, bro, I'm about to do the opposite. That's what's about to happen all day, every day.
And I've tried explaining that to so many people, is like, listen, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the label is, race, gender, or whatever. Respect is earned. Like, that we are a species where respect is earned. And we're in a place right now where just everyone is we're constantly on the stress response all the time. So guess what? Like, you're going to have to try a lot fucking harder to earn that respect. And so many people are just like, I shouldn't have to. It should just be demanded, and I deserve it. No, like you can be a label and an asshole, and I won't even respect you. Like, that's just a fact.
Life isn't fair.
Hell no. Like, life's tough. Get a helmet, honey. Like,
you're going to need it.
That goes back to what we were talking about earlier, though. It's almost the arrogance of it. Like, I demand respect, but I don't want to give any. Like, what? Like, that's not how it works at all. Whether you're no matter what letter of the alphabet you are, I don't care. You know what I mean? If you're an a-hole, you're an a-hole. I mean, I don't know. And I think that's, like you said, that's where the disconnect comes in.
They really hate when I say that hetero and cis people are part of the LGBTQ community, because those are also letters. They get really upset about that. They're like, no, that's ours. I'm like, it's a sexual orientation and it's a gender identity. Like,
you've already let people
first
into the LGBTQ community. Just let us in already. Be one big happy family.
Like, everyone likes sex on the beaches. Like, come on now. Like, stop it.
I was dying though when Matt was like, when Matt said last night, or when he said on that, he said, I watch Sex in the City. I like scented candles. I almost fell off.
So I did that like early on when someone asked me, when one of the first army of feminists asked me like, what's a woman brand? I'm kind of like doing all the things like, I don't know, dresses and makeup and like, and they're like, you sound like an idiot. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. Well,
Thank
you live and learn.
Right. And that's part of it, right? I approached it from a space of, oh, okay, I'm going to analyze what I did wrong. And then I couldn't answer it any better. And so I stopped trying to answer that question, and it made more sense. Like Savvy said, it's a hell of a lot more freeing when you just say it. Here's what I learned about and I consider the left side of this argument a very narcissistic personality. I don't like to use that word because everyone uses that word.
Right.
But when you shift somebody else's issues onto yourself, but then don't give them anything back, I think that's a narcissistic trait. I was raised by a narcissist.
Right.
That's what they do, and it's a place where when someone calls them out, they're so focused on continuing to be the victim, even when they are caught wrong. That gender professor, that's why I use that clip. That gender professor, if I was in that room, it would not have gone that way. Like,
what are you think he didn't? You think the professor didn't handle it well, or?
Oh, hell no! He was absolutely ridiculous. Like, in no universe was he equipped to answer any of those questions.
Right.
I'm like 30 seconds of thin ice. Like, fuck off.
Right.
Yeah, that's like the most frustrating thing about, when you talk about like bridging the gap, and like, I am willing to hear whatever it is you have to say, but I need you to be confident in what you're saying, or else I'm not going to understand what you're saying. And the problem is you have people who are so passionate about this whole, gender versus sex and gender identity, yet they can't explain why they believe what they believe and what it is they believe. And then when they scream the whole gender versus sex thing, they conflate the two. Or they try to bring gender into a conversation about sex and say, well, no, you told me these things were separate. Like, keep your own terms and conditions straight, please.
Right.
No pun intended.
How dare you? No, it's that's why I did that video the other day of like, hey, I'll have a conversation with you, but I want you to be honest. Like, be honest about it. I won't shame you for your honesty. In fact, I'm the safest person to be honest with, but I do want you to be honest.
Yeah. Like, why should I believe what you believe when you can't even make sense of what you believe?
Right.
Like, none of what you just said made any sense. It does not compute. I want to leave the room now so I can reprocess whatever it was I just heard and then come back in the room.
What's a woman? It's how you identify. But what is it exactly? It's how you identify.
Like, that makes no sense to me. That question, like when people say I identify as a woman, what do you mean? I have been female my entire life. It's not something I think about. It's not something I identify as. I don't remember. I've been wearing a bra since I was like 5. I started my period when I was 10. Like, my whole life is female stuff. Like, what exactly are you identifying with? Because that is the female experience.
Right.
Right there. And when you say I identify as a woman and you believe that strongly, you need to be prepared with an answer. Be prepared. You need to explain it to me, because don't expect that as women. Oh, we know exactly. No, we don't. We don't think about it. We just are.
Right. I think that Dr. Phil episode cracked me up.
Oh, it's the best. Oh my God, I watch that for funsies when I'm sad.
I keep forgetting his name, the older dude who's he talks extremely like fast and very aggressive's the wrong word, but punctual.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and he's just like, how would I know how to describe that? I've never once lived a day in my life as that. How would I possibly have the words to describe that? And I was like, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I feel you.
That's funny.
You know what? You know what's really funny too? I'm a gay woman, obviously, but I've had a tendency to date some women that would tell me that I needed to be more masculine. You have to be more masculine. You have to be more masculine. And it wasn't until somebody told me about a year and a half ago, and they were like, "Jana, you realize you're a woman, right?" And I go, I am, aren't I? And then somebody goes, you deserve to be loved the way you want to be loved.
Right.
I've never identified as a man. I like all my lady parts. I just so happen to like other lady parts as well. You know what I mean? But they had put it in my head that I needed to think that way. I got to think that way. I got to think that way, or I'm not going to be complete. You know what I mean? Whereas I am complete being just me. It doesn't have to be a sexual orientation.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? For me, it was like an eye opener.
Right.
Weird to hear stuff like that, because as a straight person, it's like, yeah, there are butch and stud lesbians. Like, it's just
right.
Okay.
I will say,
like, let's go to McDonald's.
We're being.
I didn't realize it was such an issue.
French fries and sweet and sour sauce. Sorry, it's just my favorite thing for McDonald's. And I'm just gonna ask, if we're talking candidly, I really honestly never understood the whole. Like, I always told myself that if I was gonna be a lesbian, because I've had these conversations with myself. Let's just be honest.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Let's be honest, okay?
Yeah.
I have said, like, I feel like I would totally date it would have to be someone that looked like Pamela Anderson. Like, not really her, because, you know. But I'm like, I guess I just don't understand, why is someone, like, for people telling you to be more manly, why are they with a man? Like, I don't know, it's so weird.
Right, I mean, exactly. Me personally, I feel like I'm a woman. Like, just because I don't fit certain, I don't have long hair, I don't wear a dress, I guess if I have to do all that stuff, I mean, but I don't have to. I can be a woman just the way I am. I mean, whatever makes you feel good to address me.
Right.
However you got to do it. Like, it's more for you. Labels are for other people. It isn't for me. Because I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you feel comfortable knowing, oh, you're a dyke woman. Right. Like, why the fuck don't it matter? My name's Jana.
Right.
Like, bro, come on now.
Right.
That's weird. That's just fucking weird.
The other day I saw somebody that was, okay, hold on. I'm going to try to get it right. She was a lesbian trans woman. And I thought, oh, okay. Like, I mean, and that's where I just get so confused, because if it isn't about your physical, right? I mean, that's what we're told, right? It's not about the physical, it's about the inward. So if you're a lesbian trans woman, that just means you're a straight dude? Like, I swear this is not to be rude. It just it doesn't, to me, it's like, okay, you're telling me that it has to do with your internal, but yet you're going to transition to be a woman and want to be with women, but it is only internal. I don't know. I can't. And that's where I feel like some people are like, what? Like, and that's where it's hard to keep up with it, I guess.
Here's the conversation I had with my woke HR on this. Because that's an echo chamber if there ever was one. I said, so trans women saying they're women and trans women who date other women saying they're lesbians. I'm like, would you agree that logic is solid? And they're like, sure. I'm like, okay, but what if a lesbian is a survivor of SA and the trans woman didn't have any bottom surgery? Now what? And their minds melted like a Vulcan, like got to them. And I can't tell you how many trans groups I've sat in that they've argued over this exact concept of just like, well, you know, I'm this, but 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 I'm this.
And you better use my right pronouns or I'm canceling you. Like,
y'all.
A lot of trans women don't get bottom surgery.
Right?
They don't. They don't.
There are a lot of complications associated with getting bottom surgery.
It's a dangerous one.
So there's no guarantee with it. So it's like, but I mean, I'm not a lesbian, but I imagine if I was a lesbian, I would be very turned off by penis.
Right.
And they are like I've had a few lesbians who are like, I like you as a person, but not as a romantic person because of a penis. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's fair.
I want to have your clothes on.
Right.
Your clothes on.
Right.
Preferably.
But my question then, Becca, is, and this is coming from someone who is straight and who was told that if I wouldn't date a trans person, I'm transphobic. How does that fall with lesbians who might not want to date a trans woman?
I got banned. That's why I got banned on my live last
You get called transphobic. Yeah.
Right. That's what
I said. Okay. I want to be with a biological woman that looks like a biological woman. I probably shouldn't have just said that.
Oh.
Oof.
Yeah. This is a whole argument in Europe right now. with a
Right.
company
It
called
is.
Stonewall because they were trying to redefine sexual orientation. And lesbians are like, no, I wouldn't make a lesbian mad. They get rough, they get defensive, they don't play games. And so they're fighting back over in Europe right now, in London, because they're trying to redefine sexual orientation. And what I've learned is that you don't want to push someone's sexual boundaries. That can cause issues.
Right.
It's a trauma trigger for a lot of people. I can tell you a lot of my lesbian friends, they're lesbians because of SA. I mean, not because of it, but that was a contributing
Right.
factor.
Right.
Like, I never want this thing inside of me ever again.
Right.
Right.
And that's
It's a-
completely valid.
yeah. When you try to like force someone to like change their, you push on someone's sexual boundaries, even if they haven't been through trauma, it triggers that fight or flight. So people
Yep.
are either going to run in the opposite direction when you try to tell them, no, you need to be attracted to this, or they're going to fight you.
Right.
Now, what are you prepared for if you decide you're going to push someone's sexual boundaries? And the fact that they're trying to push this on lesbians, to me, that's just weird.
Right.
Why? What have they done?
Well, and that goes back to the the misogyny conversation.
Right.
I think it circles right back to it. I think that can be a contributed unknown bias, unconscious bias.
Right. Right. Because the man, yeah, we had that conversation earlier. And my thing is, whatever happened to preference? Why is that? Why are we not allowed?
Y'all,
to have
I
that?
don't know. Like when people ask me my stuff, I'm like, I don't know. I'm into gay stuff and less than gay stuff, and I look like how I look. You tell me. Like I'm attracted to emotional intelligence. The rest is flexible, and like people don't like that answer.
Right. Right. But I mean, it's so crazy. It's like now you have to like everything. Like if I don't want to if I don't want to date a 600-pound black person who is a clown, then I'm a racist fat phobe who, you know what I mean? Like, what? Who doesn't like circuses? I don't know. Like, I don't get it. I'm like, I don't have to like anything I don't want to like. Like, it's so bizarre to me. It's just,
Yeah.
why are we forcing people that they have to like something? You have to, not only do I have to affirm you, now I have to want to have sex with you? What? Like,
What kind of love do you have if you have to force it?
right.
Right.
Is it love?
I
No.
don't know.
I mean, that's not the kind of love I want.
But they're
I
not
want
looking
someone
for
to love me because I'm me for inside and out.
Right.
You know, I'm all about unconditional acceptance with a partner. Like that's my thing,
Sure.
right? And I've been in this situation where a lesbian really wanted to have a relationship with me, and she's like, I'm gonna call you a woman. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a trans woman, I'm a male. Like that's a reality. And she's just like, I will call that body part this. I'm like, no, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that. And I had to accept that was an unconditional or that was a conditional relationship.
Right.
And I think people are struggling with that conditional relationship aspect of this whole thing.
100%. People don't know how to, it's not even a gay thing. It's
Yeah.
a human thing.
It is.
How many people conditionally love you versus unconditionally?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll love you until you no longer suit them for whatever they're using you for, and then you are discarded. Whereas unconditional love, you can be exactly who you are, and that's never going to change for me. I'm always going to love you. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
totally different. Well, if you can do this for me, if you can do this for me, if you can do this for me, then...
And,
Right.
and I'll challenge trans people who get upset about that. I'm like, why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't unconditionally accept you? Like, why would you want that for even 10 seconds in your life?
Right. Do you think it comes down to maybe they really don't want you to love them? It's just more of the power. I want to make you. I want you to tell me that you would have sex with me, even if you really, wouldn't, because I just want to hear it. Like, I don't know. Like, a part of me goes back to that whole power thing about knowing that they have the power, because if you say no, then you're transphobic. So it's like they have you by the cojones, which I don't have any, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. I don't. It's such a weird dynamic there. It's to not.
So this is the part of the documentary I really wish he would have touched on, and it's the part that people who aren't part of the community don't get a view into, but you know, a lot of the motivation behind trans is feeling alienated in your body. And feeling alienated in your body is a trauma response for whatever reason the case may be. Could be you are a survivor of SA, could be validation trauma, who knows? You know, since everyone hates men, I can understand why a bunch of men wouldn't want to be men and they turn into girls. The more we toxify men, the more people are going to want to not be men. And that's, you know, a whole other side of the conversation. But when you think about that energy with that conversation, so someone who has rejection triggers, rejection trauma, and basically in any level they approach any type of rejection, they're gonna be triggered potentially with PTSD reaction and all kinds of things, right? And that's the side of the conversation that doesn't make it outside the community because there's so much shame with it, you know. People are so ashamed of talking about mental health, but the reality is if my lived circumstances gave me PTSD and rejection trauma and validation trauma, I'm not ashamed of that. I'm perfectly fine speaking it, but so many people are. And because they're so ashamed of it, that's the additional trigger of just like, I'm going to make you the problem instead of me understanding where I'm landing and how I'm feeling. And they don't know how to tie the words to the emotions. But when you talk about fucking, I want to be this label and you don't have a fucking choice about it, it's like they are experiencing a rejection trigger.
Right.
Like that's a reality. And now that does not mean that other person has to cater to that, but it is important to understand, I think.
Right.
That's usually the response I get when I say this.
Right, but it's true though. I mean, so you're saying that a lot of it is, and I do not want to put words in your mouth, but you said that you think that a lot of the times it's a trauma response. So do you feel like it isn't necessarily something that is 100% validated? Like, because it's just a response to trauma, do you think sometimes it can be a knee-jerk reaction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the stress response taking over, the irrational side of the brain kicking in.
Okay.
And they'll just lean into whatever the first thoughts that come into their head are.
Right.
To cope the facts and the labels and all of that. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think we are all in the agreement of 18 and older is fine. Kids are off limits. I think we're all kind of on that page, aren't we?
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know,
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure because I've seen a lot of people asking in the comments. So I figured I'd at least answer them because they won't stop.
Yeah, I saw those questions about, you know, trans and gender identity being taught in schools and stuff like that. Here's my thing. Stuff like identity, don't touch it.
Right. Because
how do you develop your identity? Identities are developed organically.
Right.
It's something you figure out as you grow. And the thing is, you know, I'll be 35 whenever my birthday is. What, 2 weeks? I don't even know anymore. And I'm still figuring out who I am and what all encompasses me. It's just something you figure out. And the thing is, the concept of gender identity, most people don't have that. It's not something we innately have. It's just this concept of my womanness and my manness and femininity and masculinity. It's just, you know, stuff like that. Those are questions you ask when you get like middle school, high school.
Right.
And you start to be around other peers and you see everyone developing all these extra body parts. It's like, why am I flat chested and she's wearing a C cup? It's stuff like that. But as children, I put don't play with me, car. Anyways. So, stuff like identity for small children, don't even just in school in general, don't touch it. Right. Leave it alone. Let them figure out who they are on their own. Because the conversation is always like, "Well, your kid's still going to be trans. Your kid's still going to be gay." We know exactly. Right. That's it. There's still going to be those things. They're still going to, you know, they still might go in that way. The point is they need to figure that out for themselves, and they need to figure out what that means to them.
Right. And it walks
because gay to Johnny over here and gay to Billy over here might look a little bit different. Right. But whereas if you're a teacher and you're pushing your agenda on your child, you're not pushing that child's truth. You're pushing your truth. So you're pushing your child to believe things as you believe, and that can be very confusing. Right. Just an example. My mom, when I was going into middle school, you know, I'm Black. I don't know if you can tell.
What?
So Black children, we all get. I know. We all get the race talk of some kind growing up. And so my mom was really trying to push, this idea on me to be very wary of, discrimination that I might experience in school. And I understand because that was her experience growing up.
Right.
I 90s into 2000s was mine. Hers was like 70s going into the 80s.
Right.
So the issue is that what she was telling me and then my experience in school were two completely different things. And we were often at war about that because she couldn't understand. Savannah, I'm trying to tell you, white kids might give you trouble. And I'm saying, Mom, it's not the white kids. It's the black kids that are giving me trouble. And so we were often at odds with that. Right. And it's kind of like that when you're trying to push this agenda onto children, and then they're also having this lived experience where what they're feeling on the inside and what you're trying to push on them, it causes confusion. The point is, like, children develop their identity organically. Leave them alone. These concepts of gender identity, for most of us, it's not something we think about. It's not true. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
No. And I'm a teacher.
And then,
sorry. But yeah, as a teacher, I can tell you my account that I've been using started off that way, and then I get into the pro-life stuff, and I should have just stuck to the teacher stuff because the pro-life stuff's what got me banned. This is my backup. This is actually the backup to my backup. I have another account that's even bigger, but I'm shadow banned on whatever. So I'm here. Hi, I only have 1,000 followers on here, but I don't care. That's not what it's about. But as a teacher, I see it like my kids in the morning will be like, Miss C, I want a hot dog. And I'll tell them the choices. And then we get to lunch and they see the nachos and they're like, oh, I'd rather have nachos. Like, they don't know. They're not ready. And like Becca said, allow them to work through. What if it is a trauma response? I don't know that everyone's is a trauma response, but what if it is? Allow them to work through it. And if they're 18 and haven't worked through it and it isn't just a knee-jerk reaction, like you said, Savvy, they're still going to continue to be trans. Let's let them work through some of the stuff they need to work through. And I'm not saying it's a mental illness. That's not what I mean when I say, anytime you say therapy around this stuff, people think that you mean that they need their brain fixed. That's not what I mean. And I don't think well-meaning people mean that. I don't know. I know that there are people who, I said well-meaning.
I can't tell you how many videos I say where that's thrown at me. So.
Right. So I don't know. I'm just saying that we have got to let the kids, it's crazy. And to say that it's not happening, it's just a lie. People who say that it's not happening in school, it's just not true. It's just not, point blank. I mean, like I said, I'm going to go back to just making content about that. Hopefully this account won't get banned, but it's just this, and this new bill in Florida is just getting completely blown out of proportion. That's a whole other topic, but
so
I think it's,
while I will agree with all of that, I do. Here's the side of the conversation that I'm just kind of like, it makes me perk my ears up for 1 second. On the other side is a lot of gay folk, and I'm talking, 90s, 2000s gay folk when they were in school at that time. And during that time, things were different than they are today. And a lot of people aren't accepting that truth. But where was it go? Hold on. Where's it going? I got lost. I got lost.
We're talking about old school gays who are talking about kids or what they went through.
Yes. Okay. So what they are looking for is, what they want kids these days to see is other people like them so they cannot be ashamed and afraid of who they are. That's the charge of that side of the conversation, right? So like if I'm 14 and I'm gay, I want to see that it's okay to be gay instead of having shame and having to work through all of that, because back in the 90s and 2000s, like, shit was real. Now in today's world, now that Pandora's box is open, I don't think that same fear is valid. And I think there's a lot of people who were hurt who are trying really hard to either seek revenge, or they're simply projecting and telling kids what to be afraid of. It's the same as CRT telling Black kids what they're never going to be because of how they were born, right? I think this same projection of fear with, we've got to talk about gay and every possible thing so kids can feel like it's okay. I think it's the same ideology of just like, if you don't do it, clearly, like, your non-accepting parents are going to put you through conversion therapy and you're going to get shocked and like you're going to kill yourself. And that's all projection. There's validity to it, but it's not the same numbers as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
That's fair. I mean, I think that's totally fair to have the representation. That's the word I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're definitely taking it. I mean, I think it's a fair conversation to have that a lot of these people want more than representation. They want to make sure that their children know about their sexual, not what they're doing in the bedroom. Look, I was watching Daily Wire, and they said it. Ben Shapiro said it really good in one of the backstages. He doesn't think that these people are actually on purpose, like grooming kids. He doesn't think they're legit groomers. He doesn't believe that all these teachers want to go have sex with children. That's not what, and honestly, that's not what I believe either. I don't believe that these teachers are nefarious, wanting to have, but they're unintentionally bringing up things, or some of them intentionally, but maybe just not for the same purpose. That is just, it's out of their realm of understanding. Like when Matt Walsh I can't even remember when that movie came out, but a couple nights ago when he said about them knowing Santa, you know, and it's their age. Like they cannot grasp what that means. You know, they cannot, I don't know. And I know the doctor said that babies can tell if they're gay. I have a hard time. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's just, again, not enough knowledge maybe, but
Are those babies, or are they just like the real babies?
Zebers?
I thought they were babies. They may be a boy, or they may be a girl. So instead, we're gonna call them babies. In about 3 or 4, they can choose which gender they would like to be.
But I don't know. I think that we're trying to push grown-up conversations. And you know what? If I'm being honest, I've worked in schools. It's not just about this. We're expecting kids to know a lot more than they need to about a lot of subjects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's like, this is not the only thing on the agenda of the left. Sorry, that's what it boils down to. And I don't mean to be left and right, but when it comes right down to it, there's a lot of things that they're wanting children to, I don't know. But then again, I've seen some conservative people who might want to try to hang, you know, a flag that I wouldn't put, you know, it needs to be across the board. So I'm not saying that conservatives don't do it, you know, but you just don't see it. I don't think as much, because maybe they're not as loud about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just a dangerous territory to just talk to children about anything away from their parents. That goes back to the parents' rights we were talking about a while ago, Becca. Parents need to be, sorry, I'm getting tangled because I get so frustrated. Parents need to be involved in these conversations. The fact that teachers are now allowed to not tell the parents that they call them by a different gender or by a different pronoun in the classroom, I think that's egregious. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I do understand that there are some families who, that was a big word. I
just think of Michael Scott, The Office. It's egregious.
It's egregious. That's where I knew I had it somewhere. I couldn't think of where it was from. I'm like, why do I have that word in my head? But I think that, you know, and I know people are like, well, what if their parents like abuse them? Like, well, how bad do you think it's going to be if they find out you guys have been keeping it from them? They're going to eventually, what do you think? They're just not going to find out? They're just never going to find out for 12 years of school that their child, I don't know. That's a dangerous road to walk down.
So I've flipped that argument on a few people where they're just like, you know, teachers have to be a safe place because their parents are going to take them to conversion therapy. But I said, here's the deal. And this is coming from someone who lived in the dark for a long fucking time.
Right.
That same parent, if they find out there were secrets, that kid is going to suffer incredibly harder.
Yep.
Like that type of parent, secrets is the last thing you want, because that is just going to be an additional punishment served.
Right.
So you're actually doing more, you're putting the kid more at risk.
Right.
Yep.
Secrets, teachers,
and you could be doing more harm than good.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Like, I don't like teaching kids to keep secrets, period. Why? I was groomed. I was molested. I had things done to me. I caught the high school basketball coach sleeping with half the basketball team, and none of them wanted to turn him in because they felt like it was a good relationship. Like, that's where I struggle with the school conversation, is just this whole keeping secrets thing. While I, you know, I'm not going to use ass backwards thinking and go, all teachers who support it are pedos. No, pedos will use that situation to gain access. They will.
That's kind of what Ben Shapiro was saying along those lines of, you know, it's not that he thinks all the teachers, but if we open up this door, you know, teachers should not be secret keepers.
And that's what I was going to piggyback off what you were saying, Becca. When you start to teach,
What happened?
sorry, are we here?
Yeah. Yes.
Like you can't teaching a kid. We teach our kids all the time. Don't keep secrets. Don't let anybody, tell you. That's a dangerous territory for a teacher, because all that student has to do, if that teacher doesn't tell anybody, that student can make up any story about what happened. And even though that teacher might think they're doing the right thing, when you start keeping secrets for your students, that is a very, very dangerous line to walk.
Yeah.
Because that is,
And the problem is, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it from experience. Like, if somebody comes to me and says, Mrs. C, I have something I have to tell you, and you can't tell anybody else, I would look at them and I would be like, look, I cannot promise you that. I will listen to what you have to say, but if it's something I think you need to talk to the counselor about, or, I can't do that. I cannot promise to keep your secret. Number one, I'm a mandated reporter. So, if it's abuse or something, I have to tell. But even if it's not, I don't want that on me. I don't want that to be, no way. There is no way I could do that. It's just not our place. And I think that like I said, it's a very dangerous line. It's looking for lawsuits. It's going to get some people in trouble if we keep going this way.
I look at it from a liability standpoint too. Go ahead, Savvy.
I was going to say, even as a teacher, are you really equipped to deal with
not even a little
those issues? Because especially these young girls, there are people who are legitimately trans, obviously. Right. But a lot of these young girls nowadays, they're not legitimately trans. They're trying to cope with something else.
Right.
And you have a lot of young girls who will call them cool trans because they're dealing with something nefarious at home.
Right.
Because that's something a lot of girls will do whenever they're being sexually abused. They will try to be as unattractive as they possibly can.
What you were talking about.
In order to defend themselves.
Right.
So your child comes, kid comes to school and you're keeping this dark secret. You have no idea what is going on with this child. And you're not even willing to look into it because you've told yourself, well, I just have to affirm and believe that that's what this is. Right. No, you could be causing, you're number one, as a teacher, let's just be honest, as a teacher, because they don't give you all that education in school. You're not equipped to deal with possible psychological issues.
Right.
That boundary exists for a reason. That boundary between teacher and student exists, number one, to keep the child safe, and number two, to keep the teacher out of jail.
Right. But see, but Savvy, that's where the issue lies, though, is that we're not allowed at all to say that it is a mental issue. That's where the problem lies. I've made videos saying that I would refer them to a counselor or whatever, and it is just all in the comments. Oh, what? Because it's a brain issue? Because you think there's something wrong with them? Because because I am in no way, shape, or form equipped to deal with anybody's sexual identity. Like, I went to school for special ed. I don't know about anything about, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't go to, school for psychology. Of course, I had to take psychology classes, but I don't know any of this. But when you say that, they say, well, you don't need that because it's not in the brain. You just tell them and you just are there to support them. And I'm like, that's the problem that they run into, is that we're not allowed to say that they need to talk to a counselor because it's not a counselor's issue. Because there's no counseling that needs to be done. We're just supposed to say, okay, you're right. You are a cat. Correct. You are, I'm not kidding. If people tell you that their children are not barking and meowing in school, they're lying to you. Because it's happening. It is 100% happening. And this is the line that we're crossing. And it's like, where does it stop? You know what I mean? A lot of these kids are looking for attention. I'm not saying all of them are. I am not saying that. What I'm saying is that when we start affirming everything a child says to be fact, we are walking a very dangerous line. That's all I'm saying. It's a very dangerous line, because where's the end? Where's the end? When does that child get to tell you, where do we say, okay, pump the brakes a little bit here, bud? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's scary because it's
kids are crying out for help, and then you're not taking that cry seriously. Now you've caused more harm than good. Yep. Now this child has a psychological issue that you unknowingly basically ignored for however many years, and you didn't say anything to a parent. Now a parent has to deal with the aftermath of decisions you made as a teacher. It's best to just stay out of it. You refer that kid to a counselor, not because they have a brain problem. I mean, teenagers do just by default.
Right.
But you refer them to a counselor because a counselor is a third-party person who can help them untangle some internal issues that they might be going through. So you can figure out, okay, is this child legitimately trans, Or is there an actual root issue that is pushing them in this direction so they can cope with whatever?
Yes. And that's where we're not equipped to do that. We're not equipped to do that. I can't determine whether or not this person is escaping a trauma that's happened. Like Becca said, if this is the knee-jerk reaction to being SA'd, I don't know that. And if it is, I mean, who am I to, no. No, I'm there to teach you to read and to do math, which sometimes I don't even understand because math is weird right now. But anyway, I'm kidding. I know how to do math. But, it's just...
I don't.
I know. No, it's just, that's not... The fact that we're actually putting this on teachers is actually a little crazy to me. It really is. I can't believe that people want to put that on teachers.
That's where I'm at. I'm like, because I mean, no offense, but like I've met a lot of teachers, and like
I feel like that's above my pay grade.
Right? Yes.
That's above my wage.
Right? Yeah, that's not happening. And here's my thing: is that would they really want me as a Christian conservative? See, that's the thing. That's where you got to watch out too. They don't want me talking to their kids.
Right.
They want the teacher that has the rainbow flag and all of that talking. And see, that's where they have to be careful too, because then you're going to have teachers, which I would not do because I do not put my politics of any sort in the classroom. But there will be some who might say, "Oh no, you're not. You're not. No, we're not going to tell anybody." I think somebody said that. Like, we're not going to tell anybody about this. You're not what you are. And then they don't get the help they need either. You know what I mean? Like, so. Do you really want me talking to your kid about being trans when I don't know anything about it? I know, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. This is not the conversation for a teacher and a student.
Well, and on that same note, right? Like my high school principal, when I started kind of showing tendencies that I liked boys, this was public school. He brought me in, set the Bible on the desk, and said, he affirmed my sexual identity. And said, listen, you're going to end up as a sexual predator if you keep doing what you're doing. So, like, you're right that depending on the teacher, they're going to, they can affirm that shit all they want. They're also going to inject something into that kid that the parents are going to, it's going to cause damage to the kid. The parents are going to find out. They're going to be upset. Now the teacher's going to be sued. Now the school district is going to be sued. And now, like, taxes are going to go up. And
I couldn't be a teacher right now. I would snitch in a heartbeat. Your child told me they want me to call them Brian when I know her name is Brianna. Your child wants me to call them all these pronouns. Yes, I'm snitching. I'm not. This will not be on my conscience if this goes south.
Yeah, but now, Savvy, there's some schools where you can get fired for it.
Yeah. Fire me.
Right, that's what I said. I said if it ever comes down to it, which I don't think it will. I live in small town America, but you never know. But I've said that too. I said I will not. You can fire me. I will never, ever, ever keep a secret of a student ever.
I have to sleep at night.
Right.
And I can't sleep at night knowing that I'm carrying this secret from this child that does not belong to me. That this child could be going through something serious, and I'm not allowed to speak up.
Right. Right.
That's a lot for someone else to carry.
Right.
You're putting a lot into that teacher's hands. They don't get paid enough for that.
Like, we can barely eat lunch. Like, can I make my lesson plan and not have to worry about whether Becca likes girls or boys and just let her be? Like, that, or she can talk to somebody. Like, I don't want that stress. Go talk to the counselor. That's what they literally get paid for. So, I don't know. It's scary, though, because it's getting to the point, though, where...
I think there's a large amount of parents, my generation of parents, who don't want to be parents at the level that maybe makes sense to guide their kids correctly. It's that lack of self-responsibility, Honestly, and go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, sorry, I think out loud sometimes. Go ahead.
So, I thought about that before I took my kids to homeschool. Is like, I'm sitting here, like I was in public school. I'm like, sweet, a babysitter for 8 hours a day. And like, I think that's genuinely where a lot of parents sit with teachers.
They are. They do. Yeah.
So in these 8 hours a day, please raise my kid to be a good little citizen.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, it is. And
it might not even be like, here I have my nephew that I help take care of. I'm going to let you know, I need him to be in school. I don't know how to help him learn how it is to read, write. I can't do it. I want to throat punch him. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to do what teachers know how to do. You know what I mean? They're so awesome. Like, it's really a gift to be able to teach another human being how to do something. It's a talent,
Right.
to me. You know what I mean?
Wait,
and that there's a lot of trust.
With that being said, though, like sometimes we probably want to throw punch him too.
Y'all are just more,
but we don't.
Maybe eloquent about it.
Right. No, we just, I mean, honestly, it's just, you have to have a certain type of personality to be a teacher for sure. But it's not, it doesn't, you know, it's not that it doesn't get wearing. A lot of the times though, and I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, teachers do not quit because of the kids. They quit because of administration.
The administration. I have one of my best friends. She is a teacher here in Florida. She's like one or second, I don't know, for math teachers. Like, I mean, she does very well, and she is conservative. And she's like, I can't say certain things. I can't do this. You know what I mean? It's awful.
Right.
You
and it
can't.
Is, yeah.
I think the pandemic was such an eye-opening experience for a lot of parents.
Yes.
And realizing, holy crap, I need to take control back. I've been co-parenting with the government. I think a lot of them have that realization. I've been letting the government raise this is like sitting behind them while they're doing, you know, Zoom class. Like, this is what you're doing with my kid?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you had no idea? What do you mean? I have a friend, she's a teacher in Mississippi. She teaches in one of the poorest counties in Mississippi right now. Whereas before, she used to teach in one of the richest counties in Mississippi. And the biggest difference, it wasn't even money, because money management is a thing. That's why a lot of your low-income schools, they're not so much low income. They don't know how to manage their money. But the biggest difference in success with those students was parental involvement. A lot of your more rich schools where it seems like they got all the stuff, parental involvement. Yeah. I went to a predominantly white school in Huntersville, North Carolina, and we got a lot of flack for being, they get a lot of money. No, we had a booster club. I didn't know that lady's first name, but I know that's David's mama. Right. I know that's Robert's mama. And they're always, whatever it is we're doing, there they are. Parental involvement makes such a difference in a child's education. It's ridiculous. Right. And I think a lot of parents realize I need to be more involved and more invested in what's going on with my child. And you have that right as a parent.
Right. And right now the narrative is we want parents out of the classroom. Get out of the classroom. We're going to raise your kids. We're going to tell them that they can be what they want to be. We're going to tell
you don't have the all-encompassing right to raise your child.
Right. And I think that
no, my teachers knew my mama.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it's a mixed message that we're sending parents, because we're like, we want parental involvement, but like I said, then we're telling them we want your involvement, but we're not going to tell you if your kid identifies as a girl. Like, wait a minute. Like, what are we?
I want your money, but I just don't want you to tell me what. It's always about the money.
They want your approval, not your opinion.
About the money.
There it is.
Whoop! There it is.
Yep.
Crazy.
This is absolutely fear-mongering and teacher bashing. I'm a teacher. I'm not teacher bashing. I just happened to see that comment. What?
And it you know, yeah. I mean, not to dismiss people with comments, but like it's all different everywhere. Like a school in Missouri is going to be different than a school in Minnesota, and a school in Florida, and a school in Arizona, and schools in California. Just we gave up on.
Yeah, teachers in general are amazing. I couldn't do it because you can't hit kids anymore. I couldn't do it. So teachers, you're amazing. I think teachers should definitely get paid more, but I think that's also a money management problem.
Right.
However, there are two things. Number one, you have teachers that are really seeking validation from children, like coming out to their class.
Right.
That's nasty.
That's weird.
And then on the flip side, you're putting all of this weight on teachers. They have to keep secrets. They have to have, a transition closet where the kid can come in and change clothes. We used to do that in the bathroom when we were wearing something we weren't supposed to be wearing.
Right. Short skirts. Right.
Right. Why do you need a closet in the classroom? Just go to the girls' room. Go to the locker room. That's what you do. Sneak in the locker room and change clothes.
How are you supposed to instill good behavior if you're teaching people that it's okay to lie? You know what I mean? That's a morality thing at that. I mean, now we question why people act the way they do now. Well, you really taking the morality out of a lot of things. Like it's like to wait to have sex after you're married. I mean, it's teach their own, but I mean, they make it so cliche, you know what I mean? Oh, who does that? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Live how
I
you
can-
want to live. If it feels good, do it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Who
Yeah.
cares if it affects somebody else?
As a parent of a 19-year-old girl who has not lost her virginity yet, she talks about it openly and talks to a lot of people about it. She said that it's ridiculous. She said, my friends tell me all the time, why don't you? What's the big deal? And she's like, because she's like, well, they're like, well, what if it's bad? Well, she's like, how am I gonna know? You know, she's gorgeous. She's had a boyfriend for a year, and they've decided to wait until they're married. If they're the ones that, if they get married, they've talked about it. I mean, she's only a sophomore in college, but they're getting to that age where it could be a possibility come a few years. And so
get that MRS degree.
Right. I know. She's a D1 athlete. She's going to be she wants to do broadcasting. She's got some stuff to do first. Girl is busy. But no, it's the culture, right? It's just the morality. And this has nothing to do with religion. And I get so mad when people conflate morality and religion. It makes me want to, you know what I mean? I'm Christian, yes, but that does not have to encompass what my morals are. And when you're telling kids to lie to their parents,
it's bad behavior.
That's
bad
gross.
behavior.
I don't know.
Driving a wedge between parent and child. Yeah, it's all cool and everything to keep that secret between, teacher and the child. But that baby has to go home.
Right.
That baby has to go home and sit in that house for however many hours, holding something inside of them that they can't let out because you've convinced them that they can't tell their parents the truth.
Right. And that's torture.
That's torture. You are torturing that child. And that you put that weight on teachers. Teachers don't deserve that. Teachers should be able to just do the job they were trained to do. You teach that child to read, you teach that child math, history, and in between some critical thinking skills.
Right.
And that's it. What does the child need in order to pass that state test so they can go on to the next grade? Right. That's what teachers are supposed to do.
I know. And a lot of people think that because at least this is what I gather from conversations that I've had of how I teach. They think because I don't talk to my kids about my private life necessarily that I must not have a good relationship with my students. And I'm like, are you kidding me? My students know what my favorite food is. They know, they know all the stuff that second and third graders should know. They know that stuff. It's not like you can't talk about who you are, but
yeah,
they don't need to know. I have a great relationship with my kids. My kids feel very safe with me. I'm just not going to keep a secret. I'm not keeping your secret.
It's like you don't have a personality or something that children just fall in love with.
Right. Like I have to, what? Thanks.
Yeah.
But,
my favorite history teacher, I didn't know nothing about that man, but I love that man. I mean, he was cute too, but I love that man.
Girl, you sound like my daughter. She had a history teacher that was cute. It's always the history
teacher. It's always the history teacher. It's always the history teacher.
Girl,
my history teacher was a lady.
I feel like are you sure? I'm just kidding.
My history teacher was a 60-year-old vet. I don't have this experience, y'all.
Oh, dude. This is not Becca's lived experience.
Well, never forget that man. Mr. Novak, I'm a mage.
I gotta jump off. I got a golden retriever that wants to go for a walk.
Aww.
So.
Oh, hi. Aww,
that's Donald Trump. So, just in case you guys were wondering, I named him Donald.
Oh, that's cute. Well,
good on you.
I people were like, "Why did you do that?" I was like, just to get a knee-jerk reaction. That's my personality.
It's who you are, not a what you are.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to follow you guys. I realize I'm not following you guys from this backup account, so I have to go in here and follow everybody. I'm like, shoot. I think I'm already following you, Becca. Anyway.
Well, y'all have a great night. Thank you for letting me jump in. And Savvy, I'm so honored to meet you. I love your content. You're really awesome.
Aww.
So, yeah. Have a
I'm sorry,
super
I don't
awesome
handle compliments well. I'm awkward.
Hey, guess what? You can learn that shit and then take it in. Yes.
Bye, Dana.
Have a great night, y'all. Bye.
I think the best thing about having Savvy in here is that I feel like I really appreciate, not that I ever thought you weren't who you were in your videos, but I'm like, man, I bet she's just so cool to just have a conversation with, and
I don't know. I don't talk to people.
Well, you are right now. I mean, that's what I mean. Being able to talk and have sense and,
I think what it boils down to, really, if we're just being straight up honest, is that people just need to talk and respect the way other people feel. I mean, as long as you're respectful, like I said, we don't have to all agree on stuff. I guess that's what in the very layman sense it really all boils down to.
I mean, that's how I approach the conversations is,
Right.
I avoid the word you first off because I don't know anything about you.
Right.
Like,
right.
who am I to say anything? So, I go, here's how I feel. Here's my context behind it. And they'll go, well, this is the ridiculous. Okay.
Right.
I'm glad that that's where you landed. So this is where I landed. It's really not that hard to validate how somebody got where they got. It's just people are very focused on, and it's on both sides of being told and agreed upon that they were right. People are so afraid of being wrong. I think that's where a lot of the charge is people are genuinely afraid, so
Right.
terrified of being wrong that they have to get everyone else to affirm
Right.
that.
Right. For sure.
Like, most people don't want to be right. They just don't want to be wrong. Like, being right, you don't get the same motivation you do as fear of being wrong. Fear is a big driver.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Fear
and
is dangerous.
Right.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, I need to take more lessons because I'm usually calm and cool, but sometimes I can let people and commenters get me, and so I'll get all. And plus, I'm already snarky and sarcastic anyway. So when you get me in a mood and I'm on a roll, I can just start popping off at the mouth, and I need to, sometimes step back and pray about it. So, I'm going to work maybe on this account on being a little more eloquent with what I say, and I think the both of you are people I
Yeah.
can learn from. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's hard, and that goes back to what you're saying, Becca. It's not that I want to be right; I want to be heard. See what I mean? And that's I got to watch that. I'm growing.
It's not something that we're taught. Out of all the things that we're taught in school, we're not taught emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, emotional
Right.
resilience. Most people learn it when they're at the bottom of their life in some sort of situation where they have to either fix it or suffer. And I think that's a huge reality that I think this mental health conversation is just people don't want to talk about it. That's where I really struggle with, more right-leaning people saying this is about mental health. And it's like, well, let's not stop at that word and let's start dissecting what that really means. And
Ooh, that's a
if you-
whole separate conversation right there.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. and it's where I really struggle. And this is where I think, again, trans people can add to the conversation is I think a lot of trans people know the ins and outs of mental health better than most. It's just they're afraid of that. There's that shame stigma to it. And so they won't accept it. I accept it and acknowledge it. And I can articulate mental health very fucking well. But then when conservatives are just like, not all, the ones who are annoying about it, in my opinion, we're just like, this is about fucking mental health. How? What?
Right.
What was the cause? Because you can't find a solution without the cause. And I'm sorry, walking around being a judgmental asshole, I personally think, and based off of my work with support groups, and I'm talking thousands of conversations,
Right.
extreme conservatives have created extreme leftists through abuse. That's a reality. It's a reality. And so when they go, how did they fucking get here? I don't know, man. Look back 10 years ago and ask,
Well, and I think now what's happening is now that they're created, now they're feeding off of each other, and it's becoming this whole morph. You know what I mean? It's becoming
extreme leftists are pushing people to the
Yeah.
extreme right. And it's creating this cycle of just like, fuck y'all.
Because when you push people, you're going to push them in the opposite direction. You're going to push
Right.
them to the other extreme.
Yep.
That's
Right.
just natural. We all just need to be somewhere, not in the middle, but at least enough to approach it so we can talk to people.
Right.
Right.
But and like we've been saying the whole time, it's just people have to be willing to have that conversation. It's the uncomfortable, like Becca always says, I feel like it's the uncomfortable conversations that we have to be having. We can't people say that we live in an echo chamber, right? I hear that a lot for like conservatives. Oh, you're in your echo chamber. Well, when I try to talk to you about something, not you, Becca, but like somebody that might say that to me. Well, when I try to talk about it, fight, it's like they get immediately defensive. Well, how can I not be in my echo chamber when I can't get anybody outside of my echo chamber to have a reasonable conversation with me? What if I'm only hearing things inside my chamber
and it's respectful and they talk to me about it, how am I supposed to ever learn anything if nobody wants to talk to me? It's tough. It's like, and then that's that vicious cycle of maybe I am only hearing one side of everything, but I try to listen, but everybody just wants to yell and call me transphobic and every other phobic and ist that there is in the world. You know, it's like, there's no conversations. People don't want to have conversations anymore. Oh,
I like conversations.
Me too. Did Becca freeze for you?
She froze for me.
Okay, you're back.
Now
Okay.
she's dark.
Now she's back. I think I see her moving. There you go. Okay.
Hold on.
I
I have to charge my phone. Hold on. I'll be 1 second.
She's getting there, Savvy. She's got to charge her phone.
Cool.
I can see you still.
Well, I
and
like
you're
this filter, whatever this is that's going on.
moving. Right. Well, I don't know.
am still here, sitting in the church parking lot.
I'm a wreck after we had a baseball game tonight, and it was pretty warm here. So I'm a little bit of a mess, but I wanted to hop on.
Where are you?
I'm in Ohio. About 60 miles
please,
east.
it's not hot. It is not hot. I don't want to hear it.
I know. For me, though, it's hot for me. Sorry, I don't. You're in Louisiana, right?
Yeah, no, I'm in a swamp. I'm in New Orleans. It's a swamp.
Oh,
it is a whole swamp outside.
Yep. You can keep all of that, and I will sit outside at my baseball game every night.
Mm-mm. It is so nasty. It's disrespectfully hot.
Is it the humidity?
It is. It's humidity all year round. So in the summer, it's disgustingly hot. It's like, okay, why did I even shower?
Right.
Like, what was the point of even trying to smell nice? Because I'm just going to smell nasty as soon as I step outside. And then because it's humidity all year round, in the wintertime, it is to the bone cold. It is a different kind of cold.
Oh yeah, cold humidity it goes straight to your lungs. It goes straight to your bones.
I feel like I've never experienced that. Wow.
Yeah, so it'll be like 40 degrees here, but 40 degrees here is miserable. Wow. It's to the bone. It's not like up north where you have snow and it's almost like this insulated kind of cold. Nah, it is to the bone cold. And then I made the mistake of losing weight, so now all my insulation is gone.
That was my biggest.
This winter was awful.
That was my biggest struggle with Minnesota. So Minnesota has all the lakes. It's humid in the winter. So humid plus Canada touching equals like 30 below wind chill a third of the year. Like it was nightmare.
I will never complain about 40 degrees.
Like you don't understand.
Right. That's crazy.
It's a different kind of cold.
I've never even heard of that. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I didn't even know there was cold humidity. Who knew?
Well, it's because the cold vapor goes into your lungs, and and that's a very internal organ, and so it makes your nerves all like literally just.
Right. I mean, it totally makes sense. I guess I just never thought about it. I'm like, oh, I guess that would make sense if it was even just 40 degrees. It's cold down to your actual soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your soul. So
like, it takes a special person to get through a Minnesota winter. It really does.
I've only been to Minnesota once, and that was for a Christmas for a friend one year. We went to the Mall of America. It's the only time I've ever been. I've never been to Louisiana.
I love Louisiana.
You were saying
the food is good.
That's what you were saying in that video you made. You said the food's the only reason you stay there.
That's like if everything else in New Orleans turned to shit. And I'd be like, it's time to go. That would stop me in my tracks. Like, well, what would I eat when I leave?
That's hilarious.
It's just like, it's unlike anything else. It is amazingly good. It's just, oh.
God. Jeez. Savvy's making me want to go to Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably find a Cajun restaurant wherever you're at, but it's not
going to be the same, right?
It's not. It'll try its hardest, but it's not.
It's
not. It's a lie, whatever it is.
I'm so appreciative of Southern food. So Minnesota cuisine is like potatoes, but like potatoes and condiments. That's what they're proud of. Like they pride themselves on that. And like, when you go to a menu and you read a menu, it's got like the spicy chili pepper next to something to indicate spicy. Yeah, right. That's on like things with black pepper up there. So like it was a flavor. I grew up in Arizona. Like I'm used to Mexican food cooked by like a 90-year-old in a kitchen with a 200-year-old skillet. I
Right.
go to Minnesota where it's all potatoes and black pepper is too much. And
Oh,
now I'm back in the South where like they use red flavorings, red spices in their food like they should.
right.
And it's quite fascinating. I miss
Yeah,
it.
Southern menu is like, do you want heart disease? Do you want diabetes? Do you want high blood pressure? Do you want a headache?
Do you want to?
Like all of the above.
You're going to want to drink water with this meal. There's a lot of sodium.
Yes.
That is funny. What is happening? Irish dishes.
I'm gonna bring someone on here. I mean, this is a lovely talk. I think this is the talk that people needed, was just a place where there's not accusations, name throwing.
Right. Well, not yet. I'm just getting started.
Let's go. Let's go.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm in
How are we?
Arizona, so I'm in Phoenix, and I'm like, yeah, people don't know hot at all. Like we live on the sun here, so
Yeah, the dry
Why
heat.
would
When you have
there-
to like run
Come
from
on.
shadow to shadow, and like that's how you travel and traverse. No,
where people
no,
will
ma'am.
wait, like they'll circle the parking lot for 40 minutes just to like park in the shade, like this little spot. It's ridiculous.
No.
But like
no.
I watched the documentary the other night,
Mhm.
and I'm also a parent, and so like I think my biggest takeaway from it was just like, I mean, and I know that it's bad, I know that it's gotten bad, but I don't think that I realized that it was that bad. Was that literally all of these people, so everyone that he's talking to, primarily on the left side of the conversation, you could tell that they wanted to answer the question. Like you could tell they knew, like they know, like come on. But like they just were to the point where they literally wouldn't. And it's because I think there's such a cultural, if you open your mouth and you say the wrong thing, we are going to come for you. We are going to destroy you. And they've seen that happen to so many people over and over and over again. It's literally gotten to the point now where people are just so terrified to even have any type of a normal resemblance of a conversation. Because if they say one thing that is just barely out of like the status quo, they are done. And so you could see that like all over their faces. Whenever he would start to say certain things, you could just literally see like the terror in their face of, if I say something wrong, my life is over. So we're going to end this conversation because I can't even have this with you in any type of way, or I will be destroyed. So I would rather leave. And I'm just like, that is just so terrifying. Like as a society and as a culture and as a country, like, wow.
I agree. You know, a lot of my content, I try really hard. I'm careful with my words for a reason, because they'll weaponize anything against you. They really will. And you're right. Like as they spoke, you could see it just barely leaving their lips exactly what the answer was. Human, adult, female. But then they're like, oh no, shit. Like And when you talk about, you know, doctors who are losing their licenses when they talk about the dangers of vaccinations openly, that applies to a bunch of other medical folk as well, as particularly therapists. I've had a lot of therapists reach out to me since I started creating content and go, I want to say something, but I can't. Like the person who holds my license says that we are not allowed to do that. And I'm like, that's wild. I challenged my own therapist in that once. It didn't go very well, but then she experienced a vaccine injury and then she had the conversation differently. And that's just interesting to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's crazy too is that it goes back to the you have the audacity part of it, where they keep asking what's your truth. Like they want to speak their truth, right? But if anybody speaks like what I believe my truth is, then I'm the bigot. Wait, what? You're the only one that's allowed to speak your truth? Like I thought you want everybody to speak their truth, which I don't like that, their truth. There's the truth and there isn't. I mean, we can play semantics with words, but there really is. There is one truth. And then there is how you might perceive the truth. But that doesn't make it your truth. It's still the truth. It's just how you see it. You know what I mean? And that's where I think we get away from it. But to me, it was like when that guy asked Matt, well, what is your truth? If Matt would have said it, he would have been, canceled or whatever. But then the professor was talking 2 seconds before that about his truth or whatever. It just, I don't know. It's like
really? You mentioned that professor, and he was wow. But yeah, like it was funny because literally, so he asked him, what is your truth or whatever, and he immediately redirected back the question to him to answer because he wasn't going to answer it.
Right.
And literally 2 minutes before that, he was going on about how I'm a social scientist. This is what I do. I'm a social scientist. This is my profession. This is my field. And he literally, Matt Walsh goes, dude, I came to a university to talk to a professor. You should be the expert in this, right? And literally 2 minutes before, he was confirming all of that. I'm the expert. I know all of this. And then he wouldn't answer it. And I'm just like,
yeah.
What happened to I'm a social scientist? Like, what?
And also probably that fear of knowing if I answer this question honestly, everything else I have said will unravel.
Yes.
Because if I give this answer here, then nothing else I have said makes sense.
Right.
That's how powerful being a woman is.
Right.
Right there. But it was interesting to me to see, that professor, to see him talking to people who were so afraid of the backlash. Like, what if I have to watch my words very carefully or else something crazy might happen, versus Matt Walsh, who's like, I don't give two shits. I'm going to just say what I want to say.
Right.
And I don't care. I'm not afraid. That difference between this is what it looks like. This is what almost cowardiceness looks like versus actual bravery. Or not even bravery, just like, I'm just existing, I'm just living, I'm just speaking.
Right.
And I'm not afraid.
Yeah. Right. People are scared. People are terrified. You could tell, like y'all were saying, that those people that he was asking, they know what it is. And then when he's like, well, I'm not a woman. I can't tell you what it is. Well, can you tell me what a cat is?
Like the politician that he was talking to, that guy in California. And you could see him looking at his people off to the side. Like, I need you to feed me an answer. I need you to feed me an answer. And like, obviously they weren't going to. And then he immediately was like, we need to end this conversation. This interview is over. And I'm just like, dude.
That's why I get upset I hate the word. I loathe the word ally. Like that word is a trigger word for me, because I get that you want to support, whether the intention is for you or for them, what you do you. But like, if you don't have the neck in the game, you need to understand that the stance you're taking could easily be hurting more than it's helping.
Right.
And so when you become an irrational person using the title of ally, you are hurting all of us in a whole different way. And, I think you got to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, I think you need to reevaluate.
It's insulting when people say, I'm a black person ally, whatever. I don't even know what they're called for black people, but I'm an ally.
You're a black ally.
You set me back like 30 years by reducing me to the color of my skin.
Right. Like, and they don't even see it. They don't even see it.
Pre-George Floyd, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, like after George Floyd, because they were asking me, well, how do you feel about everything that's going on? They know me and they know what I would say. So they just wanted to kind of hear me say it out loud.
Right.
And I told them, I said, one of the biggest things that's frustrating for me is that before all of this happened, I could walk in a room and I'm just Savannah. That's it. There's no expectation. There's no thoughts. No one's thinking of me as a black girl. But now when I walk into the room, everyone is very conscious of the color of my skin.
Right.
And it's
so
frustrating, because before, none of that didn't matter. That was no one was thinking about that. Yeah. Now that's the first thing people think of when they see, now they look at me, they're like, okay, well, how do we approach her? What's the best thing to say? What do we not say?
Yeah, it's like all of this intersectionality, postmodernist, like there is no truth or scientific fact or statistical facts anymore. Everything is just how you feel and how you perceive it. And there's no right or wrong answer anymore. It's just made everybody just so terrified to talk about literally anything anymore. Like, just nobody can have any conversations because everybody's they don't want their livelihood destroyed or their family destroyed or their career, you know, any of that stuff. And yeah, I say that for the people who made that their goal, they did a really good job. And it's scary to see how well of a job they've done, actually.
I challenge it often.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, at work, I work at a very woke company. I mean, we're talking like they got blue around the mouth kind of thing. But I challenge a lot of these conversations. I hear people go, "I'm just," and they insert all these labels. "I'm just a white cis man. What am I to say anything?" First off, I'm a firm believer in self-empowerment. And the word just is the complete opposite fucking thing of that. And so as soon as I hear them say that, I'm like, what part of you is a just, honey?
Right.
Like none of those labels are a just. Those are who you are. And they, you know, that relief they see when they hear that, that's the part that makes me keep having the conversation. I'm like, no. Don't let these people devalue anything about us, because that's what makes it easy to argue about.
And those of us who are old enough to remember when not having any labels was like the cool thing. Nobody wanted to label anything back in the day. Remember, it was all like, I don't need labels. Nobody wants a label. Like, don't do that to me. Don't put me in that box. And now everything is literally all about labels. You've got your pronouns in your bio. Like, do you guys remember back in the MySpace days when everyone would put all their phobias in their profile and stuff, and it was all about like how many things were wrong with you and all of that? Like, I think that's like where it started, probably, honestly. Right. But one of the other things was I was watching YouTube last night, and Blair White, I watch her from time to time. She's another person that's in this conversation that I feel like has like common sense, logical conversations for the most part, as someone who is also a trans woman. And she was talking about like the new trend on TikTok is all of these people that are faking mental disorders.
Don't get me started.
It's been all over. Yeah, it's been all over the news. I mean, even like,
aren't they like crunchies? Is that the term?
It's like people that are faking that they have Tourette syndrome, people that are faking that they have is it DID?
Yeah, dissociative identity disorder.
Yes, and like they're literally actually finding that it's like it's blowing up all over the place because people are making this like their brand now. They're selling themselves as this on TikTok for followers and money and attention and whatever, right? And so even major news corporations are writing articles about how there's this weird trend on TikTok that all these people are coming out with having these mental disorders, even though some of them really do have those conditions. I'm not saying that they don't, but there are a lot of them that are being caught that they are actually faking, and they're going back and finding old Facebook videos of them or old Twitch streams of them where you can clearly tell that they did not have this problem like a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden they do. So and one of the girls on this app, her own family even exposed her and was like, yeah, she's lying about this. She's never had Tourette syndrome in her life. This is not real. So anyway, she was talking about how whenever she says that people will appropriate being trans or people will say that they're trans to get attention, she's called a liar. That's not real. Nobody would ever do that. That's not a thing. And she's like, so all of these major news articles are all over the place that people are pretending to have mental conditions to get attention on TikTok. But the idea of doing that when you're with trans, no one would do that. That's not a thing. And I'm just like, how could one be true but the other not be true? Like, and like, again, it's not that everybody's obviously doing that. There are people who sincerely, genuinely struggle with gender dysphoria and all of that 100%. But the numbers that we're showing right now that are going through the roof definitely indicates that there is something else going on here outside of like normal science and biology and like statistical, it's outside of the statistical anomaly or something, like, you know.
I think it's genuinely we're in a social evolution right now. So when you think about how we've socially evolved the past couple hundred years, big social changes took 1 to 2 generations, so 50 to 100 years, right? And that all happened relatively successfully. There was people who didn't align, but for the most part, we all collectively did it. The internet, social media, being connected to an infinite amount of possibilities and tribes and all of these things, that's been around for what, 20 years? And we have gone from what takes 50 to 100 years, we're trying to do it in 5. And I think that that is triggering everybody's stress response system to the point where I actually do think that a lot of those issues exist. They're just mislabeling them because they're not deep diving into the stress response system, understanding that you aren't supposed to have a friend, 10 million different possibilities of friends. Like, we're not designed to do that yet. I don't know if we ever will be designed to do that, but our most successful social evolutions have been in tribes of under 100. And right now, people are in tribes of tens of thousands. And we can't handle that as a species. No. We can't handle that. We're not there yet. And that's the truth that I think people just aren't thinking through.
Yeah. It's almost like obviously social media has a lot of pros. It has a lot of cons. And one of the biggest thing that everyone's talking about recently with the whole Texas shooting and all that happened, which was horrific, obviously, is that, what do we need to change in our society? Like, what happened in our social fabric that shifted where we're seeing this all the time? And so a lot of people are having those types of conversations, which is good. We need to be having those types of conversations. It sucks that it takes something like that happening for us to have those types of conversations. But one of the things that I was talking about was the fact that we just don't have communities anymore. We don't rely on one another the way that we used to. We don't sit down at the dinner table and have family dinners where everybody doesn't have their phone in front of their face every second. And like how you were talking about with kids, so many of us, myself, I've struggled with this in the past. I've had to actually be very aware of it. And pull myself back from my phone when my kids, I usually get on my phone after my kids go to bed. But for a while I was struggling with, like they're over there playing and taking care of themselves. And so many parents are this all day long and this all day long. And we don't have the same human interactions that we used to have. And that definitely has had a social effect that nobody wants to talk about. So yeah.
Yeah.
So the question there is now what? Because I think that there's a very real reality that many of us need to continue to adjust to. That social media is not going away. And each generation is going to become more enveloped in that from birth to death. Especially when we're talking about remote work is going to be the wave of in 10 to 15 years, remote work is going to be anybody who doesn't have to do a physical labor. Right. So we're going to have even more disassociation and disconnection. So how I approach things is, okay, thinking 10 years ahead, how do we get back those things that we get socially from in person while still existing digitally? Our digital citizenship needs to be calibrated.
Right.
And that's something all the sides have to accept, right? That's just a reality.
Yeah, we have to do a better job, I think, of creating boundaries with respect to social media. And just, I think, a better understanding and a better education of what makes us human and what we need as human beings in order to survive, because companionship, community is vital, absolutely vital to our survival as human beings.
Yeah, look at the last 2 years. I think we all figured that
isolation will kill you.
Yeah.
Like, they do studies on prisoners when they put them in isolation. If you put them in isolation for too long, they will literally lose their minds. And then, thinking about the Texas shooter, I was just sitting thinking about it, and it's like, these school shooters have changed. I'm like, that's such a morbid thought, Savannah, but they really have. It used to be once upon a time that your school shooters were the kids who got bullied. And then, graduation approaching, they can't see life on the other side of graduation. They're dealing with all this pent up emotions, and they decide to go out with a bang. Now you have these shooters who want notoriety. They want quick fame. And this is something we've pushed in our culture via social media. And he did a lot of, bragging and kind of boasting on social media with respect to showing off his guns and even saying, this is kind of what I want to do. I think he got in trouble like the year before for saying he wanted to do something like this on social media. it's just to see that evolution in pathology with respect to shooters. We obviously want the problem to go away, but it's like, okay, we understood how to deal with the school shooter who got bullied. We were working on things within society as, anti-bullying efforts and all that. Things that we can do on a cultural level that can't always be done at a legislative level, because the government can't fix everything. I think it was Joyce Myers. I know not everyone here is Christian, but something she said, and I think it can apply to anything, is that we're depending on the government to do what the church is supposed to do.
There it is.
Or what communities back in the day
is supposed to do.
Yeah.
But now that we have these guys, these shooters, who what they want is notoriety, they want to be seen, they want to be famous, they want to leave this legacy of destruction. How do you battle that?
Yeah.
How do you fight that?
Well, you stop making them famous, but how are you going to do that? I know the Daily Wire won't mention their names or post their pictures, but every other mainstream media will, and that's the only way we're ever going to stop that. Because like you said, Becca, social media is not going away. It's here to stay. And if we continue to give these shooters a platform, which is really what we're doing, not us, but, as the media is giving them a platform to be famous, and if we just stop that, if we just stopped mentioning their names, I'm not saying don't run the story. Obviously, it's a story that people need to know about, but don't run the names. Don't run pictures of them, Let it just be some anonymous coward who went in and shot up a school, but that's the only thing we're going to be able to do, but it won't happen because that won't bring in the, right.
Because we all have to be experts on every single thing that comes across our feed, and we have to inject our all of our things into all of the things. Like we have to all psychoanalyze everything anyone has ever said.
Right.
That right there.
Right. And if we don't know the race and gender of every shooter, how can we all fight about it?
Right. But what you just said, Becca, is something I had to learn very early in my whole social media journey, because I went viral by accident. None of this was intentional. Thank you, Ben Shapiro. I had to learn very early on that, because there's always this pressure to speak on everything, because I get comments all the time. Hey, can you speak on this? Can you speak on that? Can you speak on this? Like, not everything is in my wheelhouse. I have things that I am very passionate about, and those are the things I speak on. So it's just, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to be an expert on everything. And as you grow in social media, there is that pressure to want to be a subject matter expert everywhere. And I think you were talking earlier about, abortion and, I've stayed out of that as best I can. I'm very passionate about the subject.
I should have.
But I know that once I get into...
that's what I do. That's what my whole page is.
Yeah, once I get into the subject, there's no getting out.
Right.
There's no getting out. And then it's such an emotionally charged subject. That's not the mental black hole I need to go down right now.
Right. And see, that's what got me in trouble, because when I was talking about the teaching, and I know about teaching because I'm a teacher, and when people would come at me, I'd, and even though I'm passionate about abortion, it's pro-life, whatever, it's still not necessarily my wheelhouse, and I probably should have just stuck to what I knew. But you live and learn, right? You live and learn.
Yeah, because like I said, there's pressure to want to, people pushing you, speak on this, speak on this. Like, that's not my area. That's nope. This is my box. I'm staying in my box.
Right.
This box is safe. Has a lock and key.
Stay in your lane.
Right. When you break down the root of that behavior, tie it back to what I was saying about small tribes. We would rely on our close people in our lives to have those big conversations so we could process. We're a species that process things like socially. And so now there's a bunch of people who our digital citizenship is on this screen. And so we're looking for that person to process with, but it's an infinite possibility of people.
Right.
And the algorithms fuck with all of us. And like, we're demonstrating a very root core behavior, but we're getting lost in the amount of possibilities and places that we're seeking to get that root behavior fulfilled.
Right.
Because we are a social species. We're just not supposed to be social across the fucking world.
Right. But also, too, when you're speaking to people, children, women, when you're telling them, oh, you don't need anybody, you're independent, you know, you're going to be an independent, you know what I mean? You make people think that
Ooh.
they don't need people. You know what I mean? I don't need people. I can do it on my own. I'm saying this because I'm a single mom, right? I have never been married.
We as human beings are not meant to be alone or
Right.
do this life alone at all.
But you know, we're sitting here telling everybody
No.
that they don't need people. And, you know, then we're in a society where everybody thinks they can just do everything on their own. And I think that doesn't help either, you know? I don't know.
That is one of the most dangerous things to teach young women.
Yes.
Is, you know, the whole independent woman thing.
Yep.
You know, I'm very introverted. I'm very content by myself. I guess you could call me an independent woman. But like, that mindset will isolate you from other people.
Right.
And you get into this headspace that I have to do everything on my own. That if I can't do this thing on my own, then I'm a complete failure.
Yep.
That if I have to ask for help, I've failed.
Yep.
If, you know, if I have to admit that I'm vulnerable or admit that I'm hurting, you know, I have to be able to fix all of my issues and everything around me and everyone else. It's such a dangerous thing to teach a child, especially young women.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Right. I could soapbox on that forever because that's my lived experience. The dangers
Right.
of being an independent woman. Ooh, that's a book. I could write that.
That's a book. Or a podcast.
I just started therapy because, you know, hey, we all have our thing. And one of the things my therapist asked me was, what is one of your weaknesses? And savvy, it was, I need to ask for help more often. Like, I don't ask for help because everybody's told me for years that, and they meant it in the nicest way. They weren't trying to sabotage me. They just said, you know, you don't need a man. You don't, come here. You want to say hi? My daughter loves you too because I've seen, do you remember Savvy? The girl that I show you all the time, like some of her like videos. Oh yeah. She's got the bald hair, the bald head. Are you like bald or you got some hair?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I just wanted you to say hi. But, you know, and I mean, I tell her too that, you know, I don't ever tell her that she doesn't need somebody. There's different ways to say things. We can speak life into people without telling them that they're not, you know, that they don't need anybody. You know, you can be a strong woman and still need a partner or want a partner. So there's a big difference too, you know. If you want a partner or you say you need somebody, then you're weak too. You know, and that's like you said, it's very, 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 very dangerous.
And I was raised by a single mom, as a lot of kids were. Same. And are. What was it, like the last census that they did in 2020? They found that only 18% of kids have both of their parents in their homes, right. Yep. Which is insane. It's like the single motherhood rate is like 85% right now or something. Like it's nuts. Wow. But and that's doing major damage to our culture also, right? Those are the other conversations that nobody wants to have. And I'm not dissing on single moms. Like I said, I was raised by a single mom. And like, I love my mom, don't get me wrong, but that was one of the things that she pushed a lot. And I don't even think she really realized that she did, was the whole, like, you need to be independent. Don't be dependent on a man and like all of this stuff. And like, I just grew up like that. Being raised by a single mom has a lot of that culture right in there, or a lot of those messaging, in there that I don't think that people even totally realize that they're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you pass down what you know. It's hard to pass down what you don't know. And right. If what you know as a mother is that, you know, there's no man here, it's kind of hard to pass that value down to your children.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I want my kids to not have to go through, just like, I mean, it's just generational. You're trying to break the curse. I mean, everybody does it, you know. I don't want my daughter to be a single mother. I don't want my son to father any children that he's not, you know, like, it's just, you try to just instill in them, but there's that fine line where you're like, okay, I don't want you to not, you know, need somebody. And I think somebody said it best in here is like, just because we don't want somebody or need somebody doesn't mean we don't want it. Like, we might be able to do it on our own, but doesn't mean we want to. You know what I mean? Like, I can do everything on my own, but I hate weed whacking. It is my least favorite thing. I do not like it. I like mowing the yard. I like mowing the yard. I get on my riding lawnmower, but I want someone to do that for me. Dang it. Anybody out there?
Yeah.
Okay, this is not the place. Okay, but
yeah, like I can climb the shelf at Walmart.
Right.
But I'd rather have a man who's tall enough to just grab the beefy mushroom soup and then put it in the car.
Right. I just bring my daughter. She's like 5'9", so she does that for me. But yeah, no, I get it's the same. It's the matter, but you know, we're told we don't need it. We don't need it.
Can I add a perspective?
Yes, of course.
No, yeah, no,
I
okay.
said, of
I know.
course.
It's just your life, you know.
I'm just a me, so you know. So my mom basically treated me like a husband as early as 12 years old.
Oof.
Like I had that mother, where I managed all the finances for the house at 12 years old and on. She relied on me to take care of her, right? It was very not healthy.
Were you the
and
oldest?
so no,
No,
I wasn't.
Oh,
I was the
okay. I'm
favorite.
like, as the oldest, I can feel that.
I was the favorite, not the oldest. My older brother was smart enough to leave. I wasn't. But you know, after working through my own transition understanding, right? Before I did the healing, I didn't quite know what the issue was, and after working through a bunch of stuff, I realized it was, you know, I didn't want all of those pressures of being a man, basically. And I think a lot of people don't quite use that lens when they think about trans people. It's not that they want to be this other thing. It's a lot of the time they don't want to be this other thing. And a lot of it is pressures of, you know, you've got to be this person that the whole fucking world depends on all the time. And, you know, that's why I say like toxic masculinity isn't the right word for it, but I think it's a unfair balance in a lot of people, especially when it's executed poorly and not in a supportive way. So I have an amazing friend who helped explain it to me. And it was kind of what led me down the path of being okay with the truth, was that, you know, men are trees. People rely on trees, but they also need people to water them, right? And that's that balance of masculine and femininity with a relationship with people, right? And
right.
I think we've had 30 years of that imbalance happening.
Right.
And that's where we see these large numbers of where this conversation is struggling.
Yeah, I mean, like, as a mom, so I have children of both gender. I have a son and I have a daughter. And people always ask me, well, which one are you more worried about in our culture? And I, hands down, am more worried about my son than I am my daughter all
100%.
the time.
100%.
And people do not understand that.
Same.
They're like, well, what do you
Same.
mean? And I'm like, because we have been leaving boys in the dust since the 1950s. Literally every statistic around boys has been failing, and no one is talking about it. No one is having that conversation. I believe, what is it? Boys are more likely to be homeless. They're more likely to commit suicide. They're less likely to have a job. They're less likely to finish high school, less likely to go to college, less likely to have a family. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. When you look at just how much we are failing them. And I think it's because our culture got so caught up in, you know, feminism, and we need to talk about elevating women and women's rights and women's empowerment, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's all well and good. But we got so focused on that we've completely forgotten all of this over here. And I'm like, but why can't we do both of them at the same time? Why can't we elevate our boys and our girls? And even like in the classroom, you guys are talking about education, and I know that you're a teacher. Our entire educational system is structured around girls and how girls learn. It is not structured for boys, like, at all. And you've got all of these schools now that are dropping their recesses and PE, and all of, like, boys need that time to get all of that energy out. So then they can take those several hours to actually sit and focus. But if they don't have that time to burn that off, you're not going to get that focus from them. It's just not going to happen. That's not how they're built. That's not their biology. That's not how they're designed. When you're dealing with a little boy, my son is 6, he's almost 7. So he's right at that age where he's just so much energy all the time. Right. But yeah, it's like people don't talk about this stuff. And we have done a major disservice to boys and men in our society, big time. And everyone wants to, talk about, no offense to you or anything, like the whole toxic masculinity thing. And I'm like, where do you think that comes from? Have you ever thought that maybe they're trying to overcompensate for something because we've never addressed any of these other things over here? Just a thought.
Well, and it's hard to have this conversation cross generationally because what ends up happening is there's a younger generation of people advocating, and the older generation that might have been the cause is still part of the conversation, right? And that goes back to that guilt, shame, and embarrassment thing that triggers all of us.
Absolutely.
It's we're in an interesting time where we're discovering a new language to advocate for ourselves, and there's a lot of factors with just how we've operated up until this point that it's very hard. It's uncomfortable.
Right.
And it's going to take another 2 generations to even get even somewhere closer to a healthier place about it. And that's the saddest reality. Like, if y'all think that in our generation we're going to see this pan out well, no, ma'am.
Yeah, there's so much pressure put on young boys, and then not enough care and support to really deal with a lot of the emotional upheaval that people don't really think about what young men go through during puberty, the changes that they go through, dealing with their own emotions. You're right. So much of it is catered towards young girls.
It is.
And making sure they're good. We don't pay a lot of attention to our young boys because we assume they're fine.
Right. And I mean, let's not even talk about, everything that we know, everything that we've done. The girl gets hurt and you baby her, the boy gets hurt and you say, suck it up. Not us necessarily, but just maybe some men in their life, We don't deal with mental health of boys and girls the same. In that aspect though, there are some things that aren't going to be the same, right? But they should still have equal outcomes, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I don't feel like a lot of these things do, and now with them wanting to change the way people are grading due to race, I'm waiting for it to happen with gender as well.
Well, now it's just everything is the same, right? Boys and girls are completely the same. There is no difference. All of us obviously know that is not true.
Right.
I mean, Becca, obviously you grew up as a young boy, so your experience is going to be very different from me, who was raised and grew up in the world as a girl. And so, yeah, by going into this, like, there's just no gender differences at all. I feel like boys are only going to continue to get more and more lost in that system.
Yeah.
Because we already weren't addressing it. And now we're going into there is no differences between the sexes and everyone's just the same. And that's just going to make it so much worse.
Yeah, I can't support gender abolitionists. I know a group of them where I'm at, and they are the most frustrating group of human beings to have a conversation with.
I bet.
Yeah. Boys and girls are different from the womb. Like the way, if you've ever worked with babies, this car, look, I'm still sitting here in the church parking lot. Keep the light on. Thank you.
Your battery is like,
you might want to start your car one time, Savvy. Make sure it's still running.
We're good. Like when I worked at a daycare and I worked with, even young babies, like they're literally different from the womb.
Right.
Just watching the way boys and girls process information, watching babies learn how to walk. Boys and girls, they approach it differently.
Yes.
Yep.
Because girls are a little more patient with learning how to walk. Boys, no. I had 2 boys, they were twins, and one of them learned how to walk for the other. And the other one, they're a little over 12 months, was not having that. Literally forced himself to learn how to walk.
Potty training.
Yeah, totally.
Potty training. They approach it differently. Boys literally from the womb are trying to figure out, okay, how can I unalive myself and still stay alive? Like, can I jump off this couch and die but survive? Girls process things a little bit different. Boys and girls are different, and the fact that we're approaching this course where we're trying to treat boys and girls the same and not acknowledge those fundamental differences, which are beautiful differences. It's going to cause some issues. It's going to cause some severe issues. Even if you look at autism diagnoses. Autism diagnosis actually fit more for boys. It's harder to diagnose girls. But then when you come into the education system is more geared for girls because it's all about sit still, be quiet, calm down, pay attention. Have you seen a 3rd grade boy?
Yeah.
I teach them.
She's like, I teach them every day.
I don't want to think about it. No, I can't. They're great, but you're absolutely right though. I mean, girls usually aren't diagnosed with autism until I think it's middle or my phone. It's plugged in, but for some reason it keeps telling me. But they're a lot older by the time they get diagnosed because they, like you said, Zabby, they will sit still, they will listen, they will do that. Even with having autism, a lot of people, they just don't notice it, because it's just completely different. It makes me frustrated. It's like I can't do it. You want to just help them. Now the field that I'm in, I mean, I do special ed, so it's a little different, but we diagnose a little more. I don't diagnose anything, I should say. I mean, we suggest, writing IEPs and things like that. But it's definitely, it's the boys that are diagnosed are definitely way more than the girls. But there's definitely probably just as many girls that should be, and that's sad. Makes me sad.
So I haven't made a video on this because I don't know how to articulate it yet, but I've landed somewhere with the side of the conversation that wants to, the woke folk.
Wait, is this an exclusive? Are we about to get an exclusive before you even make the video?
I don't know if I'll ever make it because like some of my stuff I say, I don't want the receipts. Like
Gotcha.
I don't want them.
Gotcha.
It's going in the drafts forever.
Y'all should see my drafts, y'all. I actually make make so many drafts where I fight with people, and then I'm just like, calm down, honey. Calm it down.
That's what I need to start doing. That's what I need to do. I need to get it out.
Yeah.
I need to get it out, put it in my drafts, and then delete it. That's
like I'll get some crazy person. I'm just sitting here like, how fucking dare you? And then I'll watch it the next day and I'll go, oh no, this person's upset. But I'll leave it there.
So sorry.
Anyways.
Okay.
So the woke folk who are about, we're going to, make everyone the same. We're not going to celebrate the differences. We're going to call out the differences. We're going to use dehumanizing languages in these conversations so we can take the humanity out of it. And I'm speaking from somebody who struggled with self-rejection. I think a large chunk of how it ends up kind of demographically all the same, I think it's a self-loathing problem. I think so many people are so comfortable with self-loathing that they exercise their entire belief structure around that loathing, including mainly just dehumanizing the human experience. And I genuinely believe that based off of the thousands of intimate conversations I've had with them. That's the one thing everyone has in common is a loathing for other things. But if you have a loathing for somebody else, it's more than likely you have something going on the inside, because you wouldn't emotionally invest yourself into that energy if it wasn't eating at you in some other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to make everything neutral.
Right.
Like trying to level the playing field when you can't. Okay, it's not like we're playing on, a diamond. We're playing on a mountaintop. Okay, there's different levels to this thing. Mm-hmm. But I hear what you're saying. Just this idea of self-loathing, and the problem is instead of dealing with it, you want to project it onto others. And you want others to share in that experience because you don't know how to deal with you and what makes you different.
Right.
It's just better if we could just treat the whole world like everyone's the same.
Right.
Because I'm different, but I don't want to be different. But maybe if we're all the same, then I'm not so different. But can we not make all what makes us all the same look like my differences?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's some people who just do not know who they are without that self-loathing. Like they don't know how to live without, I mean, we live in a state now where, people live to be offended. I mean, they will look for things on the internet to be mad about. And it's like some people do not know how to just go through a day without being offended. And I mean, I know a lot of people say that, but I mean, it's the truth. I mean, there's people that just, they don't know how to live without that feeling of either self-loathing, hating themselves, or trying to find something else to hate. I think it's just so it's evident, especially on an app like this.
I think it's a bunch of people who don't know how to sit with themselves, right?
Right.
Because, working through addiction, that's the one thing that you've got to work on is you've got to sit with all that shit in your head
Woo!
and you got to be okay with it. And
Yep.
I think I think that's a fundamental part of it is just like, I can't sit with myself. And so I'm going to, because, hate and anger was a big part of my identity before I sobered up. Like I was obsessed with anger. Like I enjoyed it. So I understand how it gets there. Because I don't want to embrace any of my own shit. Like I'm not the problem, you're the problem, right? Narcissist
I mean, that
stuff.
makes sense to be obsessed with anger because anger is such a very raw and loud emotion.
Right.
It's a fulfilling one too.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're dealing with things like addiction, you just want to feel something.
Well, actually, my addiction was because I didn't want to feel it.
Yeah. Numb everything.
I was like, oh wait, am I getting upset? Oh, where's my beer? Like, am I getting sad? Hold on, I need another shot. No, but I know what you're saying though too. It can go either way. It'll amplify your emotions or drown them, or maybe do a little bit of both, and then you end up in a bar fight in the back of a police car. Never happened to me, but I have friends.
First, you got time.
You got time.
I would get in like Lord of the Rings fights with like cars in the parking lot. So that was like my worst night. Was like
Right.
My friend Phil came out and he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm fighting Mordor," and I'm like hitting a car with a stick. And then he brought me into his apartment so I could calm down. And then I thought he was kidnapping me, so like I called my roommate and I'm like, "Phil's kidnapping me." That was a 3-day blackout. Like that's the part I remember. More happened. I don't remember.
Glad you laugh about it now. I love drunk nerds though; they're the best.
Oh yeah, nerd parties are lit, y'all. They're lit.
So like thankfully addiction is not something that I ever went through, but I was the child of an addict. My mom was an addict growing up. And so I was that kid that was like, so everything that you're doing, I'm going to make sure that I'm the complete opposite of you. Because I was terrified. I mean, my mom's an alcoholic. She's also used drugs off and on. My mom has severe bipolar. So a lot of it was that she was using those things to self-medicate because she didn't want to be on a lot of the medications, because a lot of medications that they give for bipolar have a lot of crazy side effects and all of that stuff. Right. So for her, it was just easier to drink or use drugs or whatever to medicate. And it would work for a while. But then in the long run, all of those things actually make the manic episodes way, way worse and way more intense, right? And so over time, she finally figured this out. And 2 years ago, finally. Yeah, 2 years ago, she finally got on medicine. And we didn't talk for like 3 years because my mom was just totally out of control, not on meds, it was insane. And then finally, when she got help, that's when we started working on our relationship again. But yeah, so it's like you like, if you don't have a parent like that, you can fall into that and you have to go to therapy to like deal with addiction and all of that. And then it's like, or you grow up with the addict. And so I was in hardcore therapy for 2 years, like EMDR and all of that, to deal with the trauma of living with an addict my entire life. And so it's just interesting how all of that happens. But like my 2 siblings, they've been the opposite. They're both addicts. I was the only one that kind of went the opposite way. So it's just interesting how that works.
What made me sober up was my partner at the time, who I'd been with for years, said, "I'm turning into my mom." And I was like, well, there we go.
That's enough to
AA the next day. You know what I mean?
That'll like all of the things that have happened, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah,
that was it. Like, out of all the horrible things, out of all the years of torturing myself, she's just like, "You're turning into your mother." I'm like, fuck that.
That is
it's so true, though.
Oh, well, my son has baseball practice in the morning. I'm getting off. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Savvy, it was a pleasure. Boldly, and I don't know your name, but I appreciate
It's Lisa.
It. Thank you. Lisa. Bye. All right, awesome. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. This was a fun conversation, y'all.
Yeah, I'm glad I could pop in.
I'm glad you could pop in too.
are great. Both of you are voices of reason for a lot of people on this app, for obviously totally different like topics and conversations and like spaces, but you guys are awesome and I appreciate both of you, and I'm sure you guys all take a bunch of shit. I can't even imagine. I know what I take just in my little section of TikTok, so I can only imagine. So I just want to say thank you for continuing to do what you guys do and speak truth, even when it's really difficult in this climate and in this environment. So you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Just takes
You're
exposure.
awesome.
Right.
You know, the hardest feedback I got was from your Southern video. Like the army of Southerners who got triggered by that video. Oh my God. It was so
Like,
bad, Savvy.
like why, y'all? This is like you said something. I was like, oh, I want to talk about my Southern experience with, because I just love the cultural differences of things like simple stuff like that. Where up
Right.
north
Like,
we're Americans, but yet if you go just several hundred miles up north and you call someone ma'am, it's insulting. But then you come down here and you say ma'am, it's normal because we call children ma'am, we call cats ma'am, everyone's ma'am or sir. And people flipped out. I'm like, y'all, it's not an argument. It's just we're sharing ideas and thoughts and a cultural bonding moment. Can't we just have that?
it was so hard for me not to call out some of those people because like a bunch of people stitched me too, but they're sitting there like, to be so offended by the word, you're so fucking triggered. It's fucking ma'am and sir down here. Like, get over yourself. I'm kind of like, who's triggered? Like, sounds like y'all getting triggered.
Like, y'all, we have cultural differences within our own country. It just regionally, just different cultures, and even how we address one another. Even when we're talking about gender as a social construct, just the way man looks down south and the way man looks up north, it's all very different, and it's okay to talk about these things and just compare and contrast and take notes.
Right. Like, I kind of want to make a video like, I'm sorry that up north I was raised to be a little asshole by Southern standards, but like, kind of is what it is, y'all. Like, I'm sorry, ma'am, sir, ma'am.
Subtle, and it comes with a Christian blessing. Bless your heart.
You know how many times that was said to me before I understood the passive aggression behind it? Too many. Little too many.
That's the best part when you meet someone who's not from here and you throw a couple bless their hearts and they're like, oh, thank you. Like, oh, you're so simple.
Oh, I left Minnesota because of the passive aggression. I just don't do Minnesota nice very well. And then I come down here and they're just, oh, bless your heart. Oh, thanks. You know what I learned? The hardest lesson I learned, because where I've kind of spent a lot of time is like, I don't do grocery store interactions. Like, if you try to talk to me in a grocery store, I will literally ignore you. Not in the South, honey. No, 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 no. No, it is a cultural expectation to greet and engage in a conversation with people in the South. The first time I wore AirPods at Walmart, oh my, I thought I had just like hurt somebody's child.
Oh yeah, I've been in the middle of an aisle. Somebody's kid was crying the other day while they were checking out. I entertained the kid so that man could have some peace while he was ringing up his. Like, I don't know. We're just different down here, and I think a lot of it is just the Southern trauma that we have been through as a region over the last 100, 200 years. That it's just brought something out. I don't know. That's
What
my
do you
theory.
mean by what do you mean by the Southern trauma?
The Southern trauma, slavery, Jim Crow. Think about all the South has been through over the last 100+ We had slavery, we had the Civil War, we had Reconstruction, and then add all the big American issues with World War I, Depression, World War II. Then we went through a couple decades of Jim Crow. And then coming out of all of that, that's a lot of trauma as a region that we've all been through and that we're still recovering from. So I think it just kind of got to the point where it's like, woosah. So, people talk about Southern racists. Like, we don't care no more.
Right.
We did all that. We did all that.
Yeah, he's a racist, but he also fixes my tire. I got to pick my battles.
I try explaining that to people up north because, people up north just go, all of the South is all the same type of insert negative stuff here. And, when I moved down here, I had a bunch of negative stereotypes. And honestly, I haven't even had a negative experience in the South at all. I mean, actually more from the pocket of blue I live in than anything else. But, um, when I talk about race with people up north, they're just like, they're all racist. I'm like, well, no, their exposure to diverse groups of people is different. Like, there's actually 30 something percent of all LGBTQ is in the South. And so that conversation is very different down there. People are already integrated more evenly than they are up north. So it's not that they're denying anything. It's just that conversation isn't new to them like it is y'all. And they like really struggle hearing that stuff because they've never been there, and I get it. I wasn't there till I moved down there too, and it's interesting.
Yeah, we're one big country, but we went through it. We went through some things, and I think now we're in a place where the South is just still healing from a lot of it. So it's a lot of it's just like, pick your battles. Bless your
bless your heart, honey.
I could energy and say what I really want to say to you, but bless your heart.
I mean, all I know is to insult a Southerner, all I have to do is just not say yes, ma'am, no, sir. I just don't have to say that, and that's all it takes. And I think there's validity to that.
There is.
Not to say I don't go out of my way, but sometimes.
I don't even remember like ever being taught you say yes sir, no sir. Like, I don't remember being taught. It's just so ingrained. I think is your thank you what? Oh, thank you sir, thank you ma'am. This.
Well, I was talking to my ex about it because her family's all from the South. That's why we moved down here. And I was like, do you think that people are so reactionary about it because like they would get like thwapped in the back of the head? Like it's like it's almost a trauma response for them. It's kind of like, no. Like they have that like PTSD reaction to like Meemaw, just like.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, there's certain I'm like, oh no, I can hear my mama yelling at me.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. This was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So many people tag us and they're like, y'all should talk. And I'm just kind of like, she's above my pay grade, but thank you.
Please.
Because you're accidentally famous. Yeah.
Famous. And she was talking earlier about like a lot of the hate that you get. At this point, my notifications are running a mile a minute. If I'm getting hate, I don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I completely miss it altogether. Like I don't see it. So earlier when I started, the hate it bothered me a little bit, but now everything moves so fast. So and I've learned that once I do a TikTok, I leave it alone. It alone, go about my business, come back. Oh, I did a TikTok today. And then, try not to obsess over it. But
like, I don't really engage in the comments a lot, mainly because if you do, I don't like comment wars. Like I find no value in arguing in like the little tiny 20 character thing. So like when I post it, that's kind of it. And like a lot of people who followed me for a long time, they just know I don't engage in the comments. Like I'll pick one random one to kind of talk about one day, but that's it. And then the rest is all done on lives. So
people ask all the time, like, why don't you engage in the comments? Number one, it's moving so fast, I can't keep up. By the time I've replied to someone, that comment's missing. Like it's somewhere down in the atmosphere. I can't find it anymore. And two, like, I let people argue amongst themselves. I want them to have those conversations. I don't want to interfere.
Right. And I don't want to influence either. Like that's what people were doing with me at first. They're like, the creator clearly likes this perspective. I'm kind of like, no.
I've not done any your comment anyways.
Right. All right, dear. Well, I appreciate this, and hopefully we can do another one sometime.
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. All right, y'all. You have a good night.